In 2019, the NBA's future looked very bright. Zion Williamson was the second coming. Ja was must-see TV. And RJ Barrett was a bucket waiting to happen. This wasn't just a good crop of talent. This was supposed to be a generational shift. One of those classes you look back on and say, whoa, that's when the league changed. But 6 years later, this story looks a lot different. But don't get me wrong, there's a lot of talent here. But this class has just one All-NBA appearance and only 4 All-Stars. That one can't-miss franchise player who was supposed to reshape the league, well, we're still waiting on him. The further down the draft you go, the more you find the real success stories. While the superstars at the top became massive question marks, the late bloomers and undrafted guys became the real impact players holding this class together. So, when the guaranteed locks fail and the long shots succeed, it forces you to rethink everything we thought we knew on draft night. So what happened to the class of 2019? How did such a sure thing become such a mystery? To find the answer, we can't just look at the highlights of the top 3. I'm gonna go over every pick possible, from the lottery locks to the undrafted heroes, to show you where they are now and figure out how one of the most hyped drafts of the decade went completely unrailed. In 2019, the Pelicans were at a crossroads. Anthony Davis had requested a trade midseason, sending the franchise into a total tailspin. It was time to rebuild, but the path forward wasn't clear. That is, until the NBA gods looked their way.
With the first pick in the 2019 NBA Draft, the New Orleans Pelicans select Zion Williamson from Duke University.
After months of controversy with AD, the Pelicans ended up landing the #1 pick. Some might say they're lucky, and that's not a hot take because it seems like every time the Pelicans lose a star, they end up getting the #1 pick. Days before the draft, the Pelicans traded AD to the Lakers, bringing in Brandon Ingram, Lonzo Ball, Josh Hart, and a boatload of first-round picks. And the team looked pretty good, a young, athletic core built around a generational talent. The future was here, or so we thought. Zion Williamson was unreal at Duke, 6'6", 284, and moved like a guard. He averaged 23 points, 9 rebounds, 2 steals, and 2 blocks, and shot 68% from the field. He blew through defenses and even his own shoes. But scouts question his jumper. They question his size for a power forward. But no one questioned this. If Zion stayed healthy, he'd be a star. Healthy being the key word there. Zion's career started the way no one wanted it to. That injury would end up delaying his NBA debut until January. But when he played, he dropped 22 points in 18 minutes, including 17 straight in the fourth quarter. He looked like a cheat code. And just like that, that hype returned. Only 24 games that year, but the numbers were insane. He was the first rookie since Jordan to score 20 points in 16 of their first 20 games. And for Zion, it looked like everything was clicking. He stayed healthy in his second year, and he was a monster. He played 61 games, averaging 27 points, 7 rebounds, and made his first All-Star team. But I'd say the most impressive thing was his incredible efficiency. He shot 61% from the field, and at one point had 25 consecutive games of at least 20 points on 50% shooting, tying Shaq's NBA record. But the team, they were really disappointing. A Jones fracture would sideline Zion to start the season. And if you know anything about that injury, it's a really tricky one to rehab from. The team thought he would be ready for the start of the season, but he wasn't. They pushed his timeline back by 2 weeks. Then 2 weeks became 2 months, choosing to continue his rehab at Nike's campus in Oregon. In March 2022, he rejoined the team in New Orleans, but the team announced that he would actually miss the rest of the season. So, an injury that was supposed to take 6 weeks to heal kept him out for the entire season. However, in July 2022, they gave him a 5-year extension that could be worth more than $231 million. But this deal had clauses that required Zion to play a specific number of games, and another particular clause that got people talking.
Zion Williamson has a weight clause. So the sum of his weight and his body fat percentage must stay below 295, which seems like a pretty high number if you ask me.
The Pelicans feel like Zion does a poor job of keeping himself in shape.
I'd say it seemed like Zion heard all the noise. The Pels jumped out to a fast start to the season, going 17-8, and were in first place in the West in December. And Zion would play in 29 of his first 37 games, and averaged 26-7 on 60% shooting from the field. But then, another injury. This time, the hammy. Before the All-Star break, he suffered a setback, and the team announced his return would be delayed by a few more weeks. By late April, he was ruled out for the rest of the regular season. You guys seeing a pattern here? And he missed the Pels play-in game, which they lost to OKC. So, to start the 2024 season, Zion definitely wasn't in the best shape. And Stephen A. Smith would so eloquently point it out.
Ladies and gentlemen, I saw a belly. Like when he took a deep breath, His belly bounced. That kind of belly. He looks fat.
And Zion had some other offseason baby mama drama, but I'm not going to get into that. On the flip side, this would probably end up being his most successful regular season of his career. He didn't make the All-Star team, but the Pels won 49 games, the second most in franchise history. And most importantly, Zion played in 70 games. He finally made his postseason debut in the Pels playing game against the Lakers, and he was the best player on the floor that night. Not AD, not LeBron, but Zion. With 40 points, 11 boards, and 5 assists. He was single-handedly keeping New Orleans in the game. His moment was cut short late in the fourth by yet another hamstring injury, an injury that would see him miss the rest of the postseason. He just really couldn't catch a break. At the start of the 2025 season, the hope was simple. Zion stays healthy enough to be the fulcrum of a Pelicans turnaround. Instead, he battled a left hamstring early, missed 27 games, and when he returned, he looked elite but fragile, only to suffer a lower back contusion in March that ended his season after just 30 games. And what would be a lost campaign. In limited time on the floor, he would average about 25 points, 7 rebounds, and 5 assists. But the injuries just never let him build momentum. Headed into the 2026 season, the narrative didn't change. Zion opened the year and looked impactful when available, but his body again would be the ultimate factor. A grade 1 left hamstring strain in early November forced yet another absence, cutting into what had been 5 of 6 games played to start the season, while he was averaging 23 points, 7 rebounds, and nearly 5 assists. He came back in mid-November, but it didn't last. A grade 2 right hip adductor strain put him back on the shelf yet again, and the Pelicans went right back to the cautious ramp-up routine. And if we zoom out, this is really the problem. Through January 8th, 2026, Zion has played 236 games of a possible 509 regular season games. This is about 46% availability. In other words, he's already missed the equivalent of more than 3 full 82-game seasons since entering the league. Across the last 2 seasons, the pattern has stayed the same. When he's out there, he looks like an all-star level force. And when he's not, it looks like the Pelicans are building an identity around a revolving door. Zion might be today's biggest what if. I mean, I remember coming out of high school that Zion was supposed to be the next LeBron, the next player to lead the league into the new era, and be the face of a small market team that desperately needed saving. Yet, here we are. You know what doesn't get talked about? A lot of people aren't bad with money, they're just stuck in bad timing. Bills hit before paychecks, and that's when people get pushed into bad decisions. Not poor money management, just unfortunate timing. Which connects to the sponsor of today's video, Culver. The whole get money before your payday space is really messy and kind of bad. A lot of apps and companies say they're helping, but the business is subscriptions and confusing fees and late fees and interest fees and more fees, and by the end of it, all your hard-earned money was given up for fees. But that's where Clover is different. It's using earned wage access, meaning you are not borrowing and you're not taking a loan. You're just getting access to money that you already earned just earlier. With Clover, you can advance up to $400 before payday. No credit checks, no interest, and no late fees. And what I really like is that they're transparent. If you're not in a rush, you can pick standard delivery and wait a couple days and get your money with no interest and no fees. If you want it instantly, then there's an express transfer option that will include a fee. But there's no monthly membership required to use this app. They just make money through the express transfer fees and brand partnerships that they have in the app. Like I said, very transparent. When you sign up, you connect your income and bank and see what you qualify for, the delivery options, and the cost before you accept anything. No surprises later. So, short on cash and have any unexpected or expected bills? Well, then use the QR code on the screen, sign up, and you can advance up to $400 with no credit checks or late fees. And if you're not a QR code type of person, then go into the description or comment section and you'll see a link where you can click and sign up there. Not all users will qualify. Advances range from $25 to $400, and average advances are $160. Express transfer fees may apply. Which brings us to the second pick of this draft, a player who did become the face of a franchise and brought them out of the gutters, but he almost threw it all away.
The second pick in the 2019 NBA Draft, the Memphis Grizzlies select Ja Morant from Murray State University.
Did you guys know that Zion and Ja were once teammates on the same South Carolina AAU team? Yeah, even though they played in the same area at one point in time, their paths to the NBA couldn't have been more different. Zion was a viral sensation, and Ja, well, he wasn't even ranked coming out of high school. In fact, Ja only had one major D1 offer from South Carolina. And the only reason he got his Murray State offer was by accident. Murray State's assistant coach was at a camp scouting another player, and on a complete fluke, he just so happened to wander into a side gym and saw a skinny guard lighting everybody up. And yes, that kid was Ja Morant. Ja was pretty solid as a freshman, but as a sophomore, bona fide star. He averaged 24.5 points, 10 assists, and nearly 6 rebounds, leading the nation in total dimes and becoming the first player in NCAA history to average 20 and 10 for a full season. And in the tournament, he dropped the triple-double to upset Marquette before falling to Florida State in round 2. But I don't know if anybody expected Ja to be so good, so fast in the NBA. His impact for the Grizzlies was immediate. He averaged nearly 18 points and 7 assists, won Rookie of the Year, and had Memphis in the playoff mix before the season paused for the worldwide pandemic. And the best part was, he wasn't just flashy, he was fearless. In year 2, he leveled up, leading Memphis to the first ever play-in tournament. They would lose to the number 1 seed Utah Jazz in 5 games, but Ja was, well, let's say impressive, averaging 35 and 8. In year 3, aka the 2022 season, he was a legitimate superstar. He put up 27 points, 7 assists, and 6 rebounds. He was an all-star starter, made second team All-NBA, and despite missing 25 games, won the NBA's Most Improved award. And how could I forget, guys? The Grizzlies won 56 games, good enough for second in the West. And if he hadn't missed time, he would have been right up there in MVP voting.
In the MVP conversation, this is getting fun. This is the first year in a long time where I can say candidates change or fall in or out of the conversation, not even weekly, nightly.
In their first round series against Minnesota, he almost averaged a triple-double. And in Game 5, he took over the game. 18 of his 30 points in the fourth, including this game-winning layup. In the next round against Golden State, he was even better. 34, 10, and 9 in Game 1, then 47, 8, and 8 in Game 2. And 34 and 7 in Game 3 before a knee injury ended his postseason. Very much a bittersweet exit, but the league noticed. Ja, he was up next.
Ja Morant is a future face of the league.
Just after his contract being extended, the summer of 2022 brought the first red flags. In September of 2022, a lawsuit alleged that Ja beat up a 17-year-old during a pickup game at his house. Okay. On the surface, the 2023 season was a successful one. I mean, the Grizzlies were winning, but I guess the success was getting to their heads because these guys became straight menaces. I mean, the YNs of the NBA. You had Dylan Brooks acting out all the time, Ja's dad T. Morant about to fight Shannon Sharpe on the sidelines in some unk-on-unk violence, and Ja, well, he was hooping, but the controversy followed him too. During a late January win over the Pacers, Ja and Chris Duarte got a little physical. And after the game, Ja's friends allegedly confronted some members of the Pacers near their team bus. A person in the SUV that Ja was riding in pointed a red laser at the Pacers. About a month later, the Washington Post released a report that detailed the incident with the 17-year-old from the offseason. After the altercation, Ja allegedly went inside his house and came out with something tucked in the waist. But that wasn't it. 3 days later on March 4th, hours after losing to the Nuggets in Denver, Ja went live on IG at a Colorado strip club and, well, y'all know the story. On March 15th, he met with Adam Silver, and on the same day, the league announced he would be suspended for 8 games without pay for conduct detrimental to the league. And it seemed at the time that Ja learned his lesson.
Now that I made a, terrible mistake, being inside a club and,
Now, 2 weeks after the Grizzlies season ended against the Lakers in round 1, Ja flashed yet another gun on IG Live, this time on his friend Devontae Pack's account. Yet, the Grizzlies just suspended him from all team activities. And after the season concluded, the league announced they were suspending him for another 25 games without pay. Ja returned from his suspension in December 2023 and immediately went to work. The redemption tour was here, and he dropped 34 on the Pelicans, including the dagger to win the game. But unfortunately for Ja, that redemption tour would only last a few weeks. Just 9 games into his return, he injured his shoulder and his season ended like that. Then management forced head coach Taylor Jenkins to overhaul his staff. 5 new assistant coaches were hired: Noah LaRoche and Tomas Izolo, 2 guys trying to build the offense around more equal opportunity. Now, Ja was already pissed because the coach closest to him, Blake Ahern, was let go. But now you completely change the offense?
What they're doing is weird. Like, if one guy drives right, the whole thing moves right.
You would think that you want to put your best player in positions where he's most comfortable. But that's not how this offense was going to work. As a last-ditch effort, Taylor Jenkins tried to re-implement some pick and roll back into the playbook, but it was just too late. The writing was on the wall. And we knew this since the moment management forced him to fire his assistant coaches. We started to see some more of the old Ja in the final month of the season, but for whatever reason, he just couldn't help himself when it came to the guns. This time, it wasn't even a real one, just a gesture. On April 1st, he mimicked shooting at Buddy Hield, and the league called his gesture inappropriate and issued a warning. The very next game, Ja hit the same celebration in a win over Miami. Side note, he also hit a game winner and probably had the best post-game quote of the year.
Take me through what you saw on that final possession.
A pigeon guard me, go get a bucket, win the game.
But because of that, the NBA fined him $75,000 for his blatant disregard for their warning. Ja responded by finally putting the guns down and picking up the grenades, unveiling what might be the coldest celly in the entire league. While the NBA was debating celebrations, Memphis had real problems. They fired Taylor Jenkins right before the playoffs and handed the team to Tomas Islo. New voice, competitive Western Conference, and a star who always feels one awkward landing away from everything changing. And we would see that in the 2025 play-in. Ja rolls his ankle on Buddy Hield's foot during their game against Golden State. Memphis loses, gets pushed into the last chance game, and then Ja shows up against Dallas as a game-time decision, literally, and drags them into the playoffs with 22-9. And then OKC happens. Game 1, 51-point loss. The kind that ends the hope immediately. Skip over Game 2, and Game 3 is the gut punch. Memphis is up 29, the building's alive, and right before halftime, Ja takes a hard fall in a fast break, bruises his hip, and he's done. OKC storms back, steals the game, and the series is basically over. Then the 2026 season starts, and it gets messy in a different way. After a loss to the Lakers, Ja hits the mic and keeps responding to the reporters with stuff like, "Go ask the coaching staff," and saying things like, "Probably don't play me." So, because of that, Memphis suspends him one game for conduct detrimental to the team. Even when Ja plays, it never stabilizes. A calf strain cost him time. He returns, strings together a few real point guard nights, and then something else happens. Ja has done enough to prove what he's capable of. The next step is simple, and it's not a new move or a new celebration. It's showing up, staying available, and letting the season play out without turning into a headline every month. Oh yeah, and buying into the coach's new scheme. Now, it's very easy to forget just how good RJ Barrett was coming into this draft. I mean, he was actually made for this.
With the third pick in the 2019 NBA draft, the New York Knicks select RJ Barrett from Toronto and Duke University.
His dad, Rowan Barrett, was a Canadian basketball legend, having been a star wing in France and Israel. So growing up in Canada, RJ had big dreams and even bigger expectations. When he committed to Duke, it made history. For the first time ever, a school landed the top 3 players in the same recruiting class, a literal super team on a college campus. And while most people only remember how dominant Zion was, let's not get it twisted, RJ was also hooping. He led that team in scoring, minutes, and shot attempts. So when the Knicks landed number 3 with the pick, some fans were understandably upset. Now, once the dust settled, RJ didn't feel like such a bad consolation prize. He started hot his rookie year, scoring early, showing flashes of the player he was projected to be, and then he hit that rookie wall. But some context is needed because the Knicks were pretty dysfunctional at the time. First, they fired head coach David Fizdale, less than 2 months into the season. And this team really didn't have any spacing for RJ to work with. I mean, just look at the players on the team. And then to add to all of that, they didn't really have a great playmaker. Despite all those shortcomings, RJ still averaged 14.5 and 2.6 in his rookie year, but the efficiency was not good. In year 2, Thibs arrived in New York and RJ leveled up. His numbers were up across the board, and the efficiency took a nice leap too. He started to look like he was finding his role, and surprisingly, the Knicks made the playoffs. But that magic faded fast. Atlanta put belt to, I can't say that on YouTube, and beat them in 5. RJ shot less than 39% for the series, and it was a rough finish to a promising season. But at least it was something to build on. In year 3, he averaged 20 points a game for the first time, but again, the efficiency dropped. The 3-point shooting fell off. And yet, even as the Knicks were going after Donovan Mitchell, they doubled down. They made RJ the first Knick since Charlie Ward in 1999 to get a multi-year rookie extension.
What's up, Knicks fans? RJ Barrett here. Really excited to be back. Really fired up about this extension, and I'll see you guys at the Garden.
Let that sink in. Could have had Donovan Mitchell, and they chose to extend RJ Barrett for the first time in like 20 years. But instead, they added Jalen Brunson, which in hindsight was a good move. And in Brunson's first year in New York, RJ found a new role as a third option. He was still able to score the ball comfortably with okay efficiency, but in the playoffs, he was reliably the Knicks' second best option. And through 11 postseason games, he averaged 19 a night and had a few big moments.
Get a shot up. This is for the win. Oh, it's good! Off the window!
Now, he wasn't a Tibbs guy, not like Jimmy. He wasn't some relentless defender, he didn't have a super high motor, and he wasn't a great off-ball scorer. So midway through the 2024 season, the Knicks finally pulled the trigger.
You traded me, so I'm pissed that you traded me, but you traded me home. So I'm happy that I'm going home.
It shouldn't have been a huge shock when the Knicks sent RJ home to Toronto, but let's bring in some context. He just wasn't efficient, and people around the league noticed. But right after the trade, RJ probably had the best stretch of his career to date. In his 32 games with the Raptors in the 2024 season, he averaged nearly 22 points, about 6.5 boards, and 4 assists on 61.5% true shooting.
Let's go, man!
The 2024 offseason is where it really started to feel real. RJ goes to Paris with Team Canada and plays like a featured guy, averaging about 20 points a game at the Olympics on 58% from the field, top 5 scoring in the tournament, cementing himself as not just a role player, but someone you can give the ball to and go get a bucket. In the 2025 season, his first full year with Toronto, the team basically tells him, "You're the main engine," and he responds with 21 a night, plus a career-best 5 assists. At the trade deadline, Toronto doubles down in the whole plan and trades for Brandon Ingram, then extends him immediately. Even though Ingram doesn't play that season because of an ankle injury, the message is very clear. This is the wing core now. Barnes, RJ, and Ingram. And at the start of the 2026 season, you're starting to see what that can look like. RJ opens up the year shooting a career-best 50.6% from the field. And then a nasty knee sprain on a dunk leads to a PRP injection and more missed time. RJ Barrett is not a maybe player anymore. He's a real high-volume wing who produces. And now Toronto is finally building a roster that actually fits him. Maybe he'll never be an all-star, and he for sure was not the franchise savior that the Knicks were hoping for. However, he is a good player and a capable scorer. And now he's home. By the time DeAndre Hunter hit the league, adversity was nothing to him. Every time it hit, he responded. In high school, after a dominant freshman season, he broke his leg and missed his entire sophomore campaign. He came back stronger and was still one of the best players in Pennsylvania. Despite coming to the Virginia Cavaliers with high expectations, and how did he respond? He hit the gym and gained nearly 30 pounds. Then he broke his wrist during the ACC tournament. But again, he bounced back. He became Virginia's best player and led them to a national championship. And in the title game, he dropped 27 and locked up Texas Tech's top scorer. So it's safe to say that NBA scouts were definitely paying attention.
With the 4th pick in the 2019 NBA draft, the Los Angeles Lakers select DeAndre Hunter from the University of Virginia.
The Atlanta Hawks valued Hunter so high that they traded 3 picks to New Orleans for him. And his rookie year was pretty much as expected. He started 62 of 63 games he played in, averaging 12 points, 4.5 rebounds, and shot 35.5% from deep. The next year, after a pedestrian 4-game start to the season, Hunter looked like he was turning the corner. But it didn't last too long. Right knee soreness turned into inflammation, and pretty soon, it was announced he would undergo arthroscopic surgery. Hunter recovered in time for the playoffs. However, he tore his meniscus on the same right knee that was giving him problems and was forced out for the remainder of the playoffs, missing the Atlanta series against Philly and Milwaukee. And for years, it was the same frustrating pattern. He played in more than 65 games just once in his full 5 seasons with the Hawks. But even with that, they would go on to give him a 4-year, $90 million extension. In the 2025 season, he finally looked like he could be more impactful for Atlanta. But with Jalen Johnson and Dyson Daniels on the roster, the Hawks would decide that it was time to move on from him. They cashed in on his value and traded him to the Cavs. With Cleveland, the play has remained consistent. He's been a reliable scorer and defender off the bench, and a big part of why the Cavs were a legitimate contender during the playoffs in 2025. In the 2026 season, Cleveland hasn't looked as dominant, and a lot of that is simple. They've been banged up from injuries. Donovan missed time with hamstring tightness, Allen broke a finger, and Garland and Strus were already in rehab mode early because of off-season surgeries. In the middle of all that, DeAndre Hunter has been the steady piece, about 15 points a night in under 30 minutes, a real bench scorer who can take wing matchups. And that's basically his career. A high pick, but injuries kept him from taking that star jump. However, when he is healthy, he's a legit 2-way wing that good teams actually need. But in 2026, he would end up getting traded, and people were a bit confused at first. But I'd say let's look at the numbers. $23 million for one player turned into Dennis Schroeder, Keon Ellis, and a 2-way player. Cheaper, deeper, and better value for the Cavaliers. But for the Sacramento Kings, giving up Keon on a team-friendly contract, it raised eyebrows. And for DeAndre, my guy, you just landed in chaos. Blessings to all, because I have no idea where your career goes from here. The Kings are somewhere in between contending and completely rebuilding, all at the same time. The son of former NBA guard Winston Garland, Darius Garland was one of the best hoopers in the nation before he ever stepped foot on a college court. He was already playing varsity basketball in 8th grade, and by the time he finished high school, he was a 5-star recruit and had 4 state championship rings. and 3 Mr. Basketball awards in Tennessee. Garland shocked the world when he decided to stay in state and attend Vanderbilt, but just 5 games into the season, he tore his meniscus. And just like that, he was done for the year. Like Kyrie Irving, his college career was over before he really got started. But even in that small sample size, you could see the vision. And apparently one team thought so too.
With the 5th pick in the 2019 NBA Draft, the Cleveland Cavaliers select Darius Garland from Vanderbilt University.
Garland left the NBA Combine early because he got a guarantee from one of the teams in the lottery. And of course, that team we're talking about is the Cavaliers. Now, early on, it didn't look good. He ranked dead last in win shares, value over replacement player, and real plus minus. To put it frankly, that means he was the worst player in the entire NBA. So the vibes weren't good for Garland heading into year 2. But rather than wilt under all the pressure, he put the work in. In the offseason, he reportedly put on 17 pounds of muscle, and the progress was clear. Defensively, it still looked bad, but offensively, he cut down on long twos and got the floater going. He was knocking down threes. His percentage at the rim went from 47% to 59%. In the 2022 season, after Colin Sexton's injury, Garland put the team on his back and really became one of the best point guards in the NBA. He finished that season averaging 22 points and 9 assists. And he led Cleveland to a 44-38 record and the 8th best record in the East, finishing 3rd for the Most Improved Player award. The Cavs lost in the play-in tournament and missed the playoffs, but Garland solidified himself as a star in the league. And star players get star money. Now, Garland's contract wasn't even the biggest news of the offseason. Cleveland officially broke up the Sexton backcourt, sending Sexton, Lauri Markkanen, and Ochai Agbaji in picks to Utah for Donovan Mitchell. In his first playoff series in 2023, he had some big moments. But Cleveland's run lasted just 5 games and exposed how much the Cavs needed more structure offensively. Unfortunately, that change wouldn't come in the 2024 season. Cleveland started the year slow, and in a December game against Boston, Garland was injured on a routine play. He returned to the game, but was later diagnosed with a broken jaw that required surgery. His jaw was wired shut, and he was put on a liquid diet that caused him to lose 12 pounds and kinda derailed his season. He missed 19 games, and when he got back, his numbers were down across the board, and he was really bad in the Cavs' playoff run that saw them lose in the second round. And suddenly, everyone started questioning the fit next to Donovan Mitchell, and allegedly, those close to Garland were too. Garland shot down these rumors and reaffirmed his commitment to the Cavs, and then everything clicked. Under Atkinson, Garland said he's rediscovered his joy for basketball, and he's back to being one of the best point guards in the league. In the 2025 season, he averaged 21 points and 7 assists, and he was the most efficient he's ever been. He made his second All-Star team that season, and most importantly, the Cavs finished with the best record in the East, and were seen as contenders even if Garland underwhelmed in the playoffs. In the 2026 season, the toe set the tone. He had a left big toe surgery in June, and missed the first 7 games, came back, and then a contusion flared it up again. But he's back and playing through it. So yeah. And then came the trade, when Cleveland sent Darius Garland to the LA Clippers for James Harden. It sent a very clear message. He was one of the weak links in their playoff push. Now he's in LA where the spotlight is louder than ever. But the real question is, how is he gonna fit in with Kawhi? And if the Clippers don't make a deep playoff run this year, what does that mean for their team? Anywho, as far as this 2019 draft class goes, he's leading in total assists and has stacked way more minutes than Ja and Zion. Albeit Zion and Ja have higher highs, but if you're ranking the class by what you can count on year to year, Garland has a real case for being the best return out of the 3. What do you guys think? Let me know. Would you take Garland over Zion and Ja, knowing what we know today?
With the 6th pick in the 2019 NBA Draft, the Phoenix Suns select Jarrett Culver from Texas Tech University.
Coming out of high school, nobody expected Jarrett Culver to be a top pick. He was a 3-star recruit from Lubbock, Texas. 6'4", 170 pounds, a little undersized, but tough. As a sophomore at Texas Tech, he averaged 18, 6, and 3 while winning Big 12 Player of the Year and becoming a second-team All-American. His stock exploded during the NCAA tournament, when he led the Red Raiders all the way to the national championship game. He had real size for a wing, he could create for himself and others, and he was a competitor on defense. But from the jump, you could see the struggles, especially on the offensive side. He shot just 40% from the field and under 30% from 3, and a brutal 46% from the free throw. The hope was that with the full season, he'd start to turn the corner in year 2, but he didn't. Under Finch, Culver's leash got even shorter, his role shrunk, his minutes disappeared, and eventually, he was out of the rotation completely. That summer, the Wolves traded Culver to Memphis, and before the season even started, the Grizzlies declined his 4th-year option. In Memphis, he barely saw the floor. He played 37 games, and most of those minutes were in garbage time. After that, he signed a 2-way deal with Atlanta, but he was waived a month before the All-Star break. Just 3.5 seasons in, and the number 6 pick was out of the league. Since then, Culver's been grinding in the G League. It's been over 3 years since he played in the NBA, and while guys like Dante Exum have shown a return is possible, getting back to the league will be a steep climb. But let's see if he can do it.
With the 7th pick in the 2019 NBA Draft, the Chicago Bulls select Coby White from the University of North Carolina.
Almost 7 years later, and Coby White looks like exactly what the Bulls fans hoped for when they drafted him. And Bulls Nation, let me know if I get this right. You guys were looking for a legit starting guard? Check. A leader? Pretty much check. And a guy you can trust when the game gets tight. For sure he can do that. But let's be for real. The road to get here with Coby White was not easy, and it for sure was not smooth. Even before North Carolina, Coby was always a bucket. And when Chicago took him 7th overall, they were betting on him to be the lead guard that played next to Zach LaVine. There were nights early on where Coby looked like the future, like being the first rookie in NBA history to drop 7 threes in back-to-back games. He had these streaks where the basket looked like an ocean, because other nights, he barely looked playable. At the same time, the Bulls were, and maybe still are, a mess. New coaches, new teammates, no real offensive identity, injuries, bad roster construction, you name it. But through it all, Coby kept showing up and kept working. With Zach LaVine missing most of the 2024 season, Coby had a breakout year, averaging 19, 5, and 4.5 boards. He finished second next to Tyrese Maxey for the NBA's Most Improved Player award. And while they missed the playoffs, Coby dropped 42, 9 rebounds, and 6 assists, and outdueled Trae Young in the Bulls' win over Atlanta in the play-in tournament. But coming into the 2025 season, things changed. DeMar left in free agency, and Chicago traded for Josh Giddey, which shifted Coby back off-ball more. LaVine came back healthy, which meant that he would soak up a lot of the touches on offense. Early in the season, Coby was more of a spot-up guy, still effective, but not the Coby he was a season ago. Then at the trade deadline, yeah. After that, Coby averaged 23, 4, and 4, and he was especially dominant in March, taking home the Player of the Month award, giving us a real taste of what he could do as a number 1 option. Despite the inconsistent start to the 2025 season, Coby still finished the season averaging a career-high 20 points per game on a career-high 60% true shooting, and he's still one of the best value deals in the league, making just under $13 million in 2026. I think the Bulls should keep Coby White. He's improved annually, isn't afraid of big shots, and complements Josh Giddey as a scoring guard who can stabilize the offense. I could see Coby developing into a Norman Powell type player, a high-level scoring 2 guard who can swing games, and on a successful year, could be talked about for making the All-Star game. And at the 2026 trade deadline, the Chicago Bulls finally pulled the trigger and moved him. No more rumors, no more limbo, no more crazy stretches after the All-Star to make sure that he doesn't get traded. Just a fresh start on a new team with some real structure. Coby gets to be what he's been building towards, a fearless scoring guard who can swing games and stabilize an offense. Sometimes a change of scenery isn't a gamble, it's a reset. Now, let's just see how Charlotte actually utilizes him.
With the 8th pick in the 2019 NBA Draft, the Atlanta Hawks select Jaxson Hayes from the University of Texas.
If there's one word that defines Jaxson Hayes' NBA career so far, it's stagnant. 7 years in, and he's basically still the same player he was when he got drafted. A freak athlete, a lob threat, and a highlight machine when everything clicks. But the real improvement, the real development, it just hasn't happened. New Orleans took him 8th overall, and the flashes were there from the beginning. You got crazy alley-oop finishes, weak side blocks sending the ball into the 3rd row. But then, you had the glaring flaws. He played with almost no discipline. And 7 years later, to be honest, not much has changed. In the 4 years he played for the Pels, he never showed the ability to be anything more than a backup big, mostly because the same problems that limited him as a rookie still limit him now. Before the 2024 season, he signed with the Lakers in search of a fresh start. Year 1 in LA had its moment, mostly off the bench and in limited minutes. But midway through the season, everything changed. And also suddenly, Hayes was sharing the floor with Luka and LeBron. In theory, this should have been perfect, right? But like before, we've seen flashes, some good games, some good moments, but his defense is still unreliable. Or in other words, he was cooked by Rudy Gobert. At this point, Jaxson Hayes looks locked into his role. And that's a shame because the tools are still crazy, but the gap between athleticism and actual trust just never closed. Out of all the lottery picks, Rui Hachimura might have the most unique path to the NBA. Born and raised in Toyama, Japan, basketball wasn't even supposed to be an option for Rui. But thanks to a friend, the sport found him as a 13-year-old 7th grader. Later, after dominating his high school class and becoming an international prospect, he would choose to go to Gonzaga, primarily because Spokane reminded him of home. They made a run to the national championship game during his freshman year, but Rui didn't see much court time, partly because he couldn't understand his coach's instructions. huge language barrier. But during his junior season, I think it's safe to say he learned English because he averaged almost 20 points, 6.5 boards with good shooting splits. Now, the Wizards were sold on his size and potential and made him the first Japanese player taken in the first round.
With the 9th pick in the 2019 NBA Draft, the Washington Wizards select Rui Hachimura from Toyama, Japan, and Gonzaga University.
As a rookie, Rui looked solid. He averaged 13.5 points, 6 boards, and made the all-rookie second team. But on the flip side, in that same season, Bleacher Report named him the worst defensive power forward in the NBA. And to his credit, he got better. In year 2, Rui improved across the board, and he definitely got better on that end as well. But after averaging 22 points and 7 rebounds in the Olympic Games, real life stepped in. Just a week before training camp in his 3rd season, Rui told the Wizards that he would miss the beginning of training camp to focus on his mental health, which is a brave move for a 3rd-year player to advocate for himself, and a reminder of how all sports teams should treat the mental health of their athletes. Outside of that though, it was becoming clear that Rui wasn't a part of the Wizards' long-term plans, and by mid-season, the writing was on the wall. It took a minute to adjust to playing alongside LeBron and AD, but by the time the 2023 playoffs rolled around, Rui was hooping, and the Lakers rewarded him with a 3-year, $51 million extension. Even since Luka coming to town, he's one of the best spot-up shooters in the league, and consistently shooting above 41% from 3. We know he's not a star, and he's probably never gonna be, but Rui Hachimura is a winning player.
With the 10th pick in the 2019 NBA Draft, the Atlanta Hawks select Cam Reddish from Duke University.
It's not a hot take to say Cam Reddish was the most dangerous player in the country, at least in high school. But don't take my word for it, see what Ant has to say.
Who the hardest person you had to guard?
Be honest, man. Could be when you're a freshman.
Cam Reddish.
But keeping it a buck, underneath this deep bag and elite frame, the red flags were always there because his game, well, it was never consistent. Cam was the number 3 player in the country and joined Zion and RJ Barrett at Duke in the most hype recruiting class in years. But at Duke, you kept asking, where is Cam? He shot just 35.5% from the field and 33% from 3. He floated through games and faded in big moments. Still, he was talented enough for the Hawks to take a swing on him with the 10th pick. Unfortunately, the offense was still very broken. In year 2, we saw much of the same. Great defensive instinct, but no efficiency on offense. And after 26 games, an Achilles injury cut his regular season short. But that offseason, something shifted. Cam reportedly told the Hawks that he was unhappy and wanted to go somewhere where he could have a bigger role. He told The Athletic, "I just want to get back to my old self, with how I used to play." But aside from a couple flashes here and there, he hadn't really shown that he could be that since high school. So in January 2022, Atlanta traded him to the Knicks. And despite the struggles, a lot of analysts were still high on him. But in New York, it just got worse. He struggled to find minutes before a shoulder injury rolled him out for the rest of the season. And he didn't find consistency in his second season in New York either. Eventually, in 2023, he was traded to Portland in a deadline deal. And with the Blazers, Cam arguably played his best stretch of basketball, but still not good enough for Portland to bring him back. And after 2 years of rumors, Cam finally signed with the Lakers in 2024, with the expectation that LeBron could somehow turn his career around. But the shooting efficiency never improved. He was a complete black hole on offense. I mean, just look at the numbers, and you see him relegate as a corner boy in most games and not really seem too into the offense. After trying to trade him in that voided Mark Williams move, the Lakers didn't hesitate. They just waved him after it. And just like that, Cam Reddish was out of the league. He then went to play in Lithuania, but has since left the team due to personal reasons. Cam could be a lockdown defender, a shooter, a slasher, a glue guy, but he hasn't let go of what he was in high school. And that mentality might have cost him everything. Will he be back? Maybe. Guys with that kind of talent usually get another shot, but it won't happen unless he looks in the mirror and accepts who he is now and not who he used to be. Because at this level, talent gets you into the door, but self-awareness keeps you there.
With the 11th pick in the 2019 NBA Draft, the Minnesota Timberwolves select Cameron Johnson from the University of North Carolina.
At the time, Cameron Johnson going number 11 was a reach. No one believed it would happen. Look at Coby's reaction.
Cameron Johnson just went 11th. How do you react to that news?
He went what?
11th.
Cam
in
Johnson
the draft.
11th.
Yep.
Wow, bro. That's great. I'm getting chills up here.
He started his college career at Pitt, redshirted with an injury, and then transferred to UNC, where he finally broke through as a senior. He averaged nearly 17 points, 6 boards, and 2.5 assists in his final year. At 6'8" with a really good jumper, he shot 46% from 3. And was probably the best pure shooter in the draft. But to scouts, that's about all he was. He wasn't considered a good enough athlete to defend at the NBA level. He only weighed 210 pounds. Most mocks had him going late in the first. So when Phoenix traded down to take him at 11, the basketball world kinda lost their minds. And then he got on the floor and made everybody look stupid. From day one in Phoenix, he was solid because he knew his role and did all the right things. He moved without the ball, knocked down open threes, and didn't really force anything. By his second year, he was an important rotation piece in Phoenix's run to the finals. Midway through year 4, he was traded to Brooklyn in the Kevin Durant deal and would sign a 4-year, $94.5 million extension with the team. Every contender wants him because he's exactly what you want on a good roster. And then the Nuggets pulled the plug. They traded Michael Porter Jr. for Cam, who's on a cheaper contract, defends better, and potentially fits the Nuggets system better without needing as much touches. Nuggets fans online mostly loved the fit, but they kept circling around one worry. Can he stay healthy? In 2026, that showed up fast. He was starting and averaging around 12 points, and then hyperextended his right knee and suffered a bone bruise that has him out for 4 to 6 weeks. Johnson is proof that it doesn't matter if you're 18 or 23 when you enter the league. If you can hoop, get to it. He's thriving because he plays winning basketball as one of the most coveted 3-and-D threats in the league, and that should keep him around for a while.
With the 12th pick in the 2019 NBA Draft, the Charlotte Hornets select P.J. Washington Jr. from the University of Kentucky.
If you watched PJ Washington in the 2025 season, you probably saw 2 different players. He started the year as the Mavs starting power forward and ended it starting their other forward spot. And that versatility, that ability to be positionless, well, that's kind of been the story of his whole career. PJ came into Kentucky as a 5-star big with a nice touch, but not much of a jumper at that point. But in his sophomore season, he averaged 15 and 7, and by the end of the year, he was Kentucky's go-to scorer. And most importantly, for his draft stock, he shot 42% from 3. The Charlotte Hornets, they were impressed. He came in ready to hoop. He got major minutes from the beginning and was really surprisingly good as a scorer and shooter. Then he finally earned his full-time spot in the starting lineup. He averaged around 16 points per game, a career high, and signed a 3-year, $48 million extension, which should have signaled commitment. But as soon as Bridges came back, PJ went right back to the bench. Nico Harrison in Dallas saw potential in him and thought he could benefit Luka. So now he's on his way to Dallas. And can't lie, the first few games there were rough, but when the playoffs came around, he showed up. He played well in the first round win over the Clippers, and against the Thunder, he was really unstoppable. He shot 47% from 3 against OKC, had 3 20-point games, and iced the series when he hit 2 game-winning free throws in Game 6. And against Minnesota in the conference finals, PJ locked up Karl Anthony Towns. I mean, he really just took him out of the game. We're talking about a 6'7" guy who guarded Shea the series before, and then taking on an all-star 7-footer and making him look bad. Outside of Luka, PJ's versatility might have been the biggest reason Dallas reached the finals. But then Luka gets traded, AD comes in, and his role shifts yet again. At first, it looked like PJ would get pushed into a bench role, with AD at the 4 and Cooper Flagg at the 3. Instead, by the 2026 season, PJ has locked himself in as the Mavs starting 3. Now his job is simple: shoot the ball and guard everybody.
With the 13th pick in the 2019 NBA Draft, the Miami Heat select Tyler Herro from the University of Kentucky.
When the Heat took Tyler Herro at 13, it might have raised a couple of eyebrows. He wasn't a 5-star recruit, not a McDonald's All-American, and coming out of high school, wasn't really expected to be a one and done. But when he stepped on that floor in Lexington, you knew he was different. He played with the confidence of an NBA vet. He could score, and his work ethic was crazy. And that was more than enough for the Godfather in Miami. When the season started, Tyler was ready. He was making an impact off the bench for a playoff team. And before an ankle injury took him out for 15 games, he was trying to talk himself into the Rookie of the Year conversation. And then, as we all know, the NBA bubble happened, and he just flipped the switch. I mean, think about it. He was legitimately Miami's 3rd best player during that run to the finals, playing almost 34 minutes a night as a rookie. He dropped 37 points in Game 4 of the Eastern Conference Finals against Boston, and he became the youngest player in NBA history to start a finals game, even younger than Magic and 80. But that leap didn't happen the way people expected. It wasn't until year 3 that Herro really started getting buckets. Still, coming off the bench, he put up 25 and 4, shooting 40% from 3 and won 6th Man of the Year. Miami saw enough to give Herro a 4-year, $130 million extension. The 2023 season was supposed to be his year. He would finally become a full-time starter. And the result, not quite all-star level. And then in the very first game of the playoffs, he broke his hand and missed the rest of the postseason, while Miami made another finals run without him. Then came year 5, the 2024 season, and still no growth. Injuries kept him out half the season, and in the playoffs, more disappointment. His numbers fell off a cliff, and the Heat went out in 5 to Boston. Pat Riley wasn't sugarcoating it either.
Well, he's been fragile.
But now, maybe it's finally happening. The Jimmy Butler drama kinda overshadowed Miami's season, but in the 2025 season, Herro came out looking different. Basically, he was playing a lot better with the ball in his hands. But team success is another thing. After finally trading Jimmy in 2025, the team was in a free fall and ended up as the 10th seed. Tyler Herro would take the main role and put up back-to-back 30-point games in the play-in, making Miami the first 10th seed to make the playoffs. And just when it looked like he was about to pull a Jimmy and potentially rewrite the story, reality hit. In his first round against Cleveland, numbers dropped, and the Heat got swept for the first time ever since he's gotten drafted. In 2026, they're in an interesting spot while a lot of that centers on him. But just wait. I don't think Miami's going to stay like this for a while. I think they're going to land a big star pretty soon. I sense it. If Romeo Langford could have gone straight from high school to the NBA, he might have been a top 10 pick. Bro was a certified bucket, 6'5" with a 6'11" wingspan. And in his lone season at Indiana, he averaged 17 points and 5 rebounds. Now Boston drafted him, and that's where things get complicated.
With the 14th pick in the 2019 NBA Draft, the Boston Celtics select Romeo Langford from Indiana University.
His rookie year was a mix of bad timing and bad luck. He missed a lot of time with an ankle injury, and then a wrist injury ended his season early. In year 2, he didn't return from injury until April, but when he finally got some clock, he showed some promise and even carved out a spot in the rotation late in the season by bringing some energy on defense. But the next season, his role shrunk again, and by the trade deadline, the Celtics moved on. They traded him to San Antonio in that Derek White deal, and he just wasn't able to get away from that injury bug in San Antonio. In the season and a half he spent with the Spurs, he only played 47 games, and after that, he was out of the league. He spent 2024 in the G League and was okay. Then he played in France for a little bit, and since then, he's been laying low. I haven't seen him playing in the last 2 years, and not a lot of posts on social media either. But every once in a while, you'll see him in a few tag posts where he's still training. Alright guys, before I dive deeper in the draft, let's take a second to talk about the lottery, because it really does set the tone for how we should view this class. It's safe to say that the top of this draft hasn't lived up to that generational talent. But if you're talking about depth, this lottery is elite. The 2019 lottery already has 4 All-Stars, which puts in rare company. Out of the 20 draft lotteries from 2000 to 2019, only 13 of them have had 4 or more All-Stars. But here's where 2019 separates itself. 11 of the 14 lottery picks are starting level NBA players, and that almost never happens, let me tell you. Most drafts have a few guys that flame out, especially in the back end of the lottery, but this draft, this one's a little bit different. Now there's no MVP level talent, but this draft has some pretty dang reliable players. Not a lot of flameouts, and a whole lot of value. And there is a word for that, it's depth. And that's the theme of this draft so far. Whether it's lottery guys, second round steals, or undrafted free agents, this draft is going to be about how many good players you can find. Just unfortunately, you're not going to find that with the 15th pick. Sekou Doumbouya was the kind of prospect that gets scouts and GMs fired up. Or just fired. He was the ultimate high upside pick, a boom or bust type of guy. By 15, he was already a pro in France. And within 2 years, he was starting in their top league. But at the same time, there was a lot of skills that were underdeveloped with him.
With the 15th pick in the 2019 NBA Draft, the Detroit Pistons select Sekou Doumbouya from Orléans, France.
In his rookie year, he bounced between the Pistons and their G League affiliate and had more than a few bright spots. He played in 38 games and even started in 19 of them. But then Troy Weaver came in as the new GM and he brought in his own guys with him. And Sekou got pushed down the depth chart. Detroit moved on quickly. They traded him to Brooklyn, who sent him to the Lakers, who then flipped him to Houston, who then waived him. He returned to the Lakers on a couple of two-ways, but only appeared in 2 games. By the time it was all said and done, Sekou had only played in 96 NBA games, which is still a lot. He took a swing at the G League, but didn't get much run. Then he went back to Europe, where he's actually been pretty good. It's hard not to root for Chuma Okeke, and it's even harder to feel bad about his career. After a solid freshman year at Auburn, Chuma came back even stronger, and he was cooking in the Sweet 16 against UNC until he tore his ACL.
He's hurt. He's hurt. So, but we're gonna rally.
And just like that, his future was in the air.
With the 16th pick in the 2019 NBA Draft, the Orlando Magic select Chuma Okeke from Auburn University.
Now the Orlando Magic didn't blink. And truthfully, the analysts loved the pick. They limited his minutes while he was working his way back onto the court, but after the trade deadline, they unleashed him. In those 18 games, he averaged 13, 5, and 3, and nearly 2 steals a night. He played the 6th man role in his full second year, but the jumper wasn't falling. And then, well, everything stalled. The same knee he injured at Auburn limited him to just 27 games. And meanwhile, the Magic were loading up on the forwards. Chuma's role disappeared in year 4, and so did his minutes. And just like that, his time in Orlando was over. In the 2025 season, he's been bouncing around. He had a little G League stint with the Knicks, and then a short run with the Sixers where he actually played pretty well. The Sixers didn't keep him around, but Cleveland picked him up and he was a nice bench piece on the #1 seed in the East. And now, his NBA career might be over, as he recently signed a deal with Real Madrid in Spain. Nickeil Alexander-Walker didn't just grow up next to greatness, he shared a room with it. He and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander were more than cousins. They were teammates, roommates, and training partners. But their paths separated in college. Nickeil went to Virginia Tech and stayed an extra year to develop. His sophomore season, he averaged 16, 4, and 4, and led the Hokies to the Sweet 16.
With the 17th pick in the 2019 NBA Draft, the Brooklyn Nets select Nickeil Alexander-Walker from Toronto and Virginia Tech.
But when he got to the Pels, things were getting pretty crowded. They had Lonzo, Josh Hart, Jrue Holiday, and JJ Redick. That's a lot of guards to compete with. New Orleans was looking to upgrade. So they sent Nickeil to Portland in the CJ McCollum trade. And then he was flipped to Utah, where he didn't even last a full season before they traded him to the Timberwolves. The good thing though is in Minnesota, he carved out a real role. Coming off the bench, he was one of their better perimeter defenders who could lock up your best guard, and became a pretty good shooter from deep. That Wolves run got him paid. In the summer of 2025, he was sent to Atlanta in a sign-and trade for 4 years and $62 million. In Atlanta, he solidified himself as a starting level guard who can guard both sides and brings in 20 points a night, more than double what he averaged in 2025. Does anyone remember that viral photo or video of Zion swarmed by cameras and reporters during the draft? And just a few feet away, there was another guy sitting by himself, no attention, no microphones, nothing. Well, that guy was Goga Bitadze. Goga's basketball journey started in Georgia, the country, not the state. He would make his pro debut at just 16 years old, and by the 2019 season, he was dominating overseas. He won MVP honors in the ABA and the BLS, the Serbian Super League, and he was named the ABA League's top prospect and the EuroLeague Rising Star. When he entered the 2019 draft, he was pegged to go anywhere from late lottery to mid-first round. Indiana didn't expect him to be available at 18, but when he was, they decided to pick him up.
With the 18th pick in the 2019 NBA Draft, the Indiana Pacers select Goga Bitadze from Tbilisi, Georgia.
And the hope was that he would get a chance in Indiana. But the Pacers already had 2 young centers in Miles Turner and Domantas Sabonis. So with both of them on the floor, it was hard for Goga to find minutes. And after 3.5 seasons, Indy was moved on. He signed with the Magic, and it seemed like the change of scenery was needed. He finished the year with Orlando and proved to be the high-energy backup they needed. Goga signed a 3-year, $25 million deal in the offseason of 2024. And the 2025 season would be the best of his career. He averaged career highs across the board. He never turned into the stretch big some hoped he would be, but he brings toughness, rim protection, and the occasional poster.
Keeping him in the game. Suggs one-handed pass, Bitadze!
Put it simply, he's one of the best backup centers in the league right now. You guys know that the Spurs took Luka in the 2019 draft, just not that Luka. And this one's career could not have gone more differently. Like a lot of European prospects, Luka Šamanić was a pro early. He was already on NBA radars at 15, and by 17, he was playing in Spain's second division. He was 6'10", had incredible size, footwork, and a versatile offensive game.
With the 19th pick in the 2019 NBA Draft, the San Antonio Spurs select Luka Šamanić from Zagreb, Croatia.
Like a lot of Spurs rookies, he spent a lot of time in the G League. He got a chance to play in his second year, but only appeared in 33 games. The Spurs cut him before he got to his third season. New York gave him a look on a 2-way deal, but he never touched the floor. Boston's G League affiliate, the Maine Celtics, gave him another chance, and that got him a 10-day with the Jazz. Utah's head coach Will Hardy was an assistant when Luka was with the Spurs and believed in him. But in the 2024 season, he couldn't really break the Jazz rotation. Utah decided to move on and cut him. He signed with the Turkish powerhouse Fenerbahce, but left the team after just a month. Then he briefly returned to play in Croatia, but left when he got a better deal to play with the Spanish club Baskonia, and I think he's playing in a Russian league right now. Matisse Thybulle is one of those players you really want to like you really do. If you watch him in college, you'd understand why. At UW, he was a 4-year starter. No cap, he might have been the best defender I've ever seen play college basketball. He's a 2-time Pac-12 Defensive Player of the Year, a Lefty Drysdale Award winner, and the Naismith Defensive Player of the Year. The guy averaged 3.5 steals and 2 blocks per game as a guard. But the question then, and the question now, was offense. He was not a good shooter.
With the 20th pick in the 2019 NBA Draft, the Boston Celtics select Matisse Thybulle from the University of Washington.
The Sixers didn't care about that though, and right away he delivered. Well, at least on defense. In just his second season, he was second team all defensive, despite only playing 20 minutes a night. That's really almost unheard of. His third year was arguably his best as a pro, but he still couldn't shoot the three or do much else offensively. Philly was basically playing 4v5 on that end of the court. Then came the playoff controversy. Philly drew Toronto in the first round, which turned out to be the worst possible scenario for Matisse. He wasn't vaccinated, so he couldn't play in Canada. Doc Rivers pulled him from the starting lineup, his minutes plummeted, and so did his standing in Philly. And eventually, he was traded to Portland halfway through the 2023 season. In the second half of that season in Portland, he looked revived. In 22 games, he averaged 7.5 points and shot 39% from deep. But then came the injuries. In 2024, he plays okay, but in 2025 and 26, his story has been injuries wiping him out of his rhythm, from limited games to thumb surgery and knee issues. If he can stay healthy, he's like a better version of Andre Roberson with a jump shot. But most guys don't get 3 or 4 years to play catch up. So realistically, he needs to get a healthy season in ASAP. Let me get this off my chest real quick. Brandon Clarke is the reason why scouts should sometimes stop worrying about measurables, age, weird stats, and just watch the game. He was crazy good first at San Jose State, then at Gonzaga. He's a freak athlete. He shot 69% from the field and 80% at the rim. He guarded 1 through 5 effortlessly and was legitimately the best shot blocker in the country, leading the NCAA in total blocks. But in reality, he was only 6'8", and his wingspan was also 6'8". He weighed about 208 pounds, and he was going to be 23 before the NBA season began. Oh, and he couldn't shoot.
With the 21st pick in the 2019 NBA Draft, the Oklahoma City Thunder select Brandon Clarke from Vancouver and Gonzaga University.
Lots of teams didn't see the vision, but Memphis definitely did. He had the highest field goal percentage of any rookie in NBA history, averaging more than 10 points per game. And he was in the 95th percentile of role men in the NBA. There's a reason he finished 4th in Rookie of the Year voting and was first team All-Rookie. Hey, you remember when I told you that he couldn't really shoot? Well, his form has always been a work in progress. This is how it looked at San Jose State. This is how it looked at Gonzaga. Not perfect, but better. Now, this was him during his rookie year. Even better, more fluid, something you can work with. I don't know who told him to change things up, but this is what his shot looked like when he came back for year 2. Yeah. Despite getting more minutes, his numbers and offensive efficiency was down. And by the end of the season, especially during the playoffs, he lost his spot in the rotation. Still, the couple seasons saw Clarke being more solidified in his role as a valuable, high-energy, high-efficient forward off the bench. And he signed with the Grizz for 4 years and 52 M's. Life-changing money. But then in March 2023, something bad happened. Yeah, the left Achilles. He only played in 6 games in the 2024 season. Now Clarke is 29, he's not as bouncy as he once was, but he's still productive. He's still great in the pick and roll, and he's still good when he's on the floor. But with the growing injury history, his future feels uncertain. Grant Williams is almost the opposite of Brandon Clarke. I mean, some would say he doesn't even look like a hooper, but don't get it twisted. Grant was back-to-back SEC Player of the Year, first-team All-American, and the best player on the 31-win Tennessee team.
The 22nd pick in the 2019 NBA Draft, the Boston Celtics select Grant Williams from the University of Tennessee.
Boston saw through the lack of size and raw talent, and the fit was actually perfect. By his 3rd season, Grant was a huge part of the Celtics rotation. Ime Udoka leaned on his versatility on both sides of the floor, especially now that Grant was shooting 41% from 3. And the development was on full display in the playoffs. I won't forget when Grant Williams sent Giannis and the Bucks home because he just couldn't miss. 27 points to go with 7 threes in a Game 7. Grant was really a big reason why Boston made the finals. And just when it felt like he'd found a home, Ime had to go and ruin someone else's and his own. You guys know the story. Suddenly, Ime was out and Joe Mazzulla was taking over. And things were different for Grant. His role was changing to the agitator who talked trash at the worst possible times. Let's never forget this classic. Yeah, the Celtics lost that game. And then there was also the time he pissed off Jimmy Butler in Game 2 of the playoffs. In the summer of 2003, Grant was in line for a payday, but instead of giving him a deal, they made one of their own, trading for Kristaps Porzingis, allowing Grant to go to Dallas in a sign-in trade to play with Luka and Kyrie. But things just never worked out, and they traded him to Charlotte at the end of the deadline in 2024. Back playing for his hometown Hornets, Grant got to be Grant again. In the 29 games he spent with Charlotte in the 2024 season, he put up nearly 14, 5, and 3, shooting 50% from the field and 37% from 3, the best numbers of his career so far. He was starting to look like the guy from Tennessee when injuries allowed him to. In November 2024, late in the fourth quarter against the Milwaukee Bucks, he would go down with a knee injury, a really bad one, and we haven't seen him in the 2026 season yet. Can someone remind me what happened to Darius Bazley? He was a 5-star recruit, a McDonald's All-American, and a top 20 player in the class. And with that, he signs a letter of intent to play at Syracuse. At the same time, Bazley is working out with an NBA-level trainer who likes what he sees, and the trainer calls an agent. The agent comes to watch Bazley work out and is immediately intrigued, so he invites him to dinner. Now, keep in mind, this is before NIL, so agents aren't supposed to be contacting kids, but we know how this business goes. And so, at this dinner is when things started getting grimy.
Well, yeah, he was just telling me, like, it's a chance, when you go there, you might not play, coaches might be lying to you, you might be out of position, you might get hurt, you might get lost in the sauce. And before any of that, I never thought of anything that could go wrong.
The agent starts selling Bazley on this idea for his future. And in March of 2018, Bazley announced he'd be skipping college and going straight to the G League. Now, in the meantime, this agent was asking him to work out, inviting him to dinners, giving Bazley money, buying him shoes. This was before DB signed anything. And then reality hit.
It said, like, they've been jotting down every little thing. The shoes that they told me they was looking out for me for, the phone, the workouts, all of that, but they never said nothing to me.
And that's crazy work, because they basically put him into a 360 deal.
With the 23rd pick in the 2019 NBA Draft, the Utah Jazz select Darius Bazley from Cincinnati, Ohio.
You could argue, though, that the immediate returns were good. He was still a first-round pick, with OKC taking a chance on him, and he showed some promise. During his rookie year, Darius was getting around 20 minutes per night. The next year, with OKC deep in rebuild mode, he got a real shot. He started every game he played in, averaged almost 14 inefficient points and over 7 boards. But midway through his fourth year, they traded him to Phoenix, where he barely played. He signed with Brooklyn in the offseason, but didn't make the roster. He had a short stint in Philly, hooped in the G League, then went to Utah, but couldn't catch on there either. He went over to China to play for a bit, and the last thing I can see is while playing for the Lakers' 2025 G League team, he went down with a scary leg injury. In a league full of guards with speed like Ja, size and shot-making ability like Cade, quickness and fast twitch like Steph, and the ability to handle like Kyrie, it doesn't feel like Jerome should fit in. But make no mistake, this man can hoop. At Virginia, Jerome was the heartbeat of a national championship team. He led the ACC in assists, had the best assist-to-turnover ratio in the country, and shot nearly 40% from 3. And that's why Phoenix took him in the first round.
With the 24th pick in the 2019 NBA Draft, the Philadelphia 76ers select Jerome from the University of Virginia.
But almost immediately, the injury bug bit, and it bit often. A sprained right ankle in training camp delayed his rookie debut by 6 weeks, and he never got in a rhythm. Then, he got dealt to OKC as part of the Chris Paul trade. And then more bad luck. In the first hour of the first day of training camp, Ty sprained his left ankle and missed 32 games that season. By the time the 2023 season came along, OKC traded Ty to Houston, and they immediately waived him. He signed a 2-way deal with Golden State and played some good minutes for the Warriors in a bench role. And while he was in the Bay, he would become close with assistant coach Kenny Atkinson. The following summer, Ty signed a 2-year, $5 million deal with Cleveland. But just like his start in Phoenix and OKC, adversity would strike. Just 2 games into his Cavs career, he sprained that right ankle again. Ty talked about feeling depressed, but he found support in former teammate Steph Curry, who sent Ty some of his specialized ankle braces. 5 days after his surgery, Ty got some more good news.
Breaking news, Woj just tweeted that the Cleveland Cavaliers are hiring Kenny Atkinson as the franchise's next head coach, and sides are working on a contract that's expected to be completed soon.
Atkinson believed in him, and in 2025, he put up career numbers. 12.5 points, 3.5 assists, and 2.5 boards on 64% true shooting in only 20 minutes a game. And he was one of the biggest reasons why Cleveland was the #1 seed in the East. But in the playoffs, it got rough. Indiana targeted him on defense. The Cavs had to cut his minutes, and the same guy who looked steady in the regular season suddenly couldn't stay on the floor. But Memphis liked what they saw in the regular season and took a bet on him, giving him a 3-year, $28 million deal. Then 4 minutes into a preseason game in Miami, he suffered a high-grade right calf strain and got shelved again. So let's see what the rest of his tenure looks like in Memphis once he gets injury-free. There was a time, and I'm not joking, when some people thought Nassir Little might have been the best player in his high school class. And yes, that means better than Zion. He was the MVP of the McDonald's All-American game and the Jordan Brand Classic. There's only one other player to do that, and his name is LeBron James. So when he got to Carolina, it felt like Nas was next in line, but he just didn't know how to play basketball yet. He finished the year averaging under 10 points in just 18 minutes a night. However, Nas still declared for the draft, and when he fell to Portland at 25, almost every analyst thought they got a gem. The thing about potential is, it's a nice word, but it usually means you're not there yet.
With the 25th pick in the 2019 NBA Draft, the Portland Trail Blazers select Nassir Little from the University of North Carolina.
Nas cracked the rotation early, and then Carmelo arrived, and Portland leaned on his veteran presence, and so those extended minutes were harder to find. A bad concussion during the hiatus ended his first season, and he never played in the bubble. Year 2, more flashes and a string of nagging injuries. Nothing major, but just enough to stop the momentum from ever building. Year 3 though, it felt like something was changing. He was finally getting extended minutes, and then boom, torn labrum. To his credit, Portland saw enough to give Nas a 4-year, $28 million extension. Following season, he came back, and his jumper was actually looking nice early in the season, but then a hip fracture kept him out for 6 weeks. He played in 54 games that season, and that's his career high. Then he was shipped to Phoenix as part of the Dame trade. But even with the Suns, it was the same thing. More injuries, no consistency, and eventually, he just fell out of the rotation, and the Phoenix Suns would end up waiving him. He's still just 26, and if health is on his side and he can master even just the corner three, he's still got all the physical tools to help a team somewhere, right? Unlike Nas Little, Windler wasn't some big-time recruit, and he didn't have all this potential. Instead, he was a 4-year player at Belmont, but his senior season was something special. Bro was a 6'7" lefty who led Belmont to the tournament and then put up 35 and 11 on Maryland's head in the first round. And clearly, the Cavs were impressed.
With the 26th pick in the 2019 NBA Draft, the Cleveland Cavaliers select Dylan Windler from Belmont University.
Unfortunately, he just could never get on the floor. A stress fracture in his right knee cost him the entire rookie season. The next year, when he was finally able to play, he broke his wrist in his very first game. He came back later that season, but had to have another surgery due to issues from the stress fracture. He played in 50 games in year 3, but more issues stemming from that stress fracture kept him in and out of the lineup. And after that, it was an ankle injury. Setback after setback after setback. So Cleveland just let him walk. He would go on to sign with the Knicks, but mostly played in the G League, and that earned him a couple of stints with the Lakers and Hawks, but nothing stuck. He's now playing in Australia and just signed a new 2-year deal over there. Let's get this out of the way. If you still think the NBA is the only place where hoopers thrive, you really don't know ball. Because if you'd watch Mfiondu Kabengele, you'd know that the talent was never the question. Sometimes it's about bad timing and bad situations. Kabengele was the ACC Sixth Man of the Year on those Florida State teams with Terrence Mann and Devin Vassell. And a lot of the time, he looked like the best player. The tools were there, but he was raw and he needed time and investment.
With the 27th pick in the 2019 NBA Draft, the Brooklyn Nets select Mfiondu Kabengele from Burlington, Canada and Florida State University.
Instead, he landed on the Clippers, a team of vets trying to contend with no time to teach. And he didn't get worse, he got buried. Frankly, never even got a real chance. So he went first to the G League, and in 3 seasons there, he's averaged 19 and 10 while playing some really good defense. Since then, he's played in Europe and in Dubai, and in one of the years, he was the All-Euro Cup first team and led the whole league in rebounds. You know that phrase when they say, shooters shoot, or you miss 100% of the shots that you don't take? Well, some players never met a shot they didn't like. They gotta have that unrivaled confidence. It can make you a legend, but it's a spectrum. On one end, there's Coby and Michael, and then on the other end, there's Dion Waiters. And somewhere in between, depending on the night, there's Jordan Poole. He was on that Michigan team with Mo Wagner and Duncan Robinson that lost to Nova in the national championship game. Poole didn't get a lot of run that season, but that confidence came through when Michigan needed it most.
Pulls it right in front of us to Abdul-Rahman at midcourt, extra pass. And it goes for the win! The three-pointer by Jordan Poole!
Problem is, sophomore year wasn't much better. No one, and I mean no one, had him going in the first round.
With the 28th pick in the 2019 NBA Draft, the Golden State Warriors select Jordan Poole from the University of Michigan.
But with Clay out with an ACL injury, the Warriors needed a shooter and took him early. Both of his first years started the same exact way. He'd get off to a really slow start and then was sent down to the G League. Poole would dominate there, then he would come back and finish the year strong. And toward the end of the second year, he won that starting job in camp and started cooking on a nightly basis. During the championship run in 2022, you could argue that Poole was their second best player, putting up 17 points, 4 assists, and 3 boards on 65% true shooting. Now you already know what happened when the baddies were courtside at the finals. It was a good summer to be Jordan Poole. And then things were just never the same after the punch. Golden State gave Poole a 4-year deal worth up to $140 million, but whatever aura he had was gone. He averaged a career-high 20.5 points, 4.5 assists, but the efficiency was down, and he was so inconsistent. And come playoff time, a shadow. Obviously, something had to change to maximize Steph's timeline, and it did. In 2024, he did not have a great season with Washington. The shot selection, the decision-making went from questionable to reckless. On the scale from Dion Waiters to Coby and Mike, he was definitely closer to Dion Waiters. But in the 2025 season, he bounced back. It was a little bit better, a little bit more confident, more efficient. The Pelicans saw value for that in the offseason of 2025 and traded for him. With the Pelicans, it really hasn't been looking good. They haven't been winning, and he's not even a starter in most games anymore. Coming out of Kentucky, Keldon Johnson was a jack of all trades, but a master of none. And that was kind of the problem. Scouts just saw a player without a standout skill. He was just kind of boring.
With the 29th pick in the 2019 NBA Draft, the San Antonio Spurs select Keldon Johnson from the University of Kentucky.
But no team loves boring more than the San Antonio Spurs. He really didn't get a chance to play until the bubble, and in those 8 games, he was impressive, and Pop had a lot of praise.
He's always at a high level of competitiveness. His motor is always, top notch. He doesn't have a gear as far as anything below.
That motor got him in the starting lineup by year 2, and he became a fan favorite in San Antonio for his effort. He stepped up in year 3 by averaging 17 and 6, while knocking down 40% of his threes. In that offseason, the Spurs would lock him up with an $80 million extension and moved off DeJounte Murray, making Keldon the #1 option in 2023, and he was ready for it. He dropped 20 pounds, came in ready, and put up 22 a game, but the Spurs weren't winning, and his flaws showed that he was not really a franchise player. The last couple seasons, he's made the transition to a bench role, and honestly has owned it. When he steps on that court, it's instant energy and instant hustle. I wonder if Manu helped him transition into that. Anywho, at the end of the day, he's still only 25 and on a team-friendly deal. He'll probably be in the NBA for a little bit longer, to say the least.
With the 30th pick in the 2019 NBA Draft, the Milwaukee Bucks select Kevin Porter Jr. from the University of Southern California.
Troubled but talented. That's KPJ. Much like his NBA career, his lone season at USC was a wild ride. He started hot, then got injured, came back for a game, and then got suspended for personal conduct issues. Now, Cleveland was proved right after picking him early. He was their best rookie that season, averaging 10, 3, and 2. That's the talent part, but then the trouble follows. In 2020, he was accused of punching a woman and ripping off her weave in a fight, but no charges were filed. A few months later in November, he got arrested.
Cleveland Cavaliers player Kevin Porter Jr. is out of jail tonight after he was arrested early this morning in Mahoney County.
Because of that arrest, he started the season inactive. And in the meantime, the Cavs have made a trade for Taurean Prince, which caused even more trouble.
We learned that they intend to trade or waive 2019 first-round pick Kevin Porter Jr. during an outburst he had Friday after finding out his locker was given to Taurean Prince.
3 days later, the Cavs shipped him off to Houston for just a top 55 protected second-round pick. The Rockets sent him down to play in the G League bubble, and he goes nuclear. They bring him back into the main roster, and he's hooping. There we go, the talent. Then he got fined $50K by the league for violating health and safety protocols. He and Sterling Brown went to the strip club in Miami and got in a fight in the parking lot, the trouble side. The very next night, he drops 50 points and 11 assists on Milwaukee, becoming the youngest player in league history to have 50 and 10. Talent. Then the next season, there was a time where KPJ got in an argument with assistant coach John Lucas at halftime, threw something at him, and literally just left the arena. Trouble. Now imagine how good he must have been on the floor if the Rockets still gave him a 4-year, $82 million deal, even though it was largely unguaranteed. KPJ responded with a great season of 19 points, 6 dimes, and 5 boards a night. And for that one season, no trouble. But y'all know that didn't last.
Porter Jr. was arrested at a Manhattan hotel for domestic assault, allegedly.
Houston was done. Exactly 1 year after signing his extension, they traded him to OKC, who immediately waived him. A few months later, he signed with the Greek club and showed off his talent again. 22 points, 10 boards, 7 assists, 3 steals a game. And he had the first triple-double in Greek Basket League playoff history. And suddenly, the NBA is forgiving. He signed with the Clippers in the 2025 season and got traded to Milwaukee at the deadline. And with the Bucks, he's been a valuable piece for them, and he's had some really big moments for them. A lot of fans will never forgive him for his actions, and rightfully so. And whether you think he deserves a shot at redemption, well, that's up to you. Nick Claxton was not supposed to be this good. Matter of fact, nobody even saw him coming. Not scouts, not experts, heck, not even Georgia. And you know how it is, most NBA guys are legends in high school, but not this guy. He was actually ranked outside the top 200, but you saw a kid who put in the work. Year 1 at Georgia, 15 minutes a night, 4 points, 4 boards, and probably a few confused looks. But he kept grinding, and that next year, 13 points, 9 boards, and almost 3 blocks per game.
With the 31st pick in the 2019 NBA Draft, the Brooklyn Nets select Nicholas Claxton from the University of Georgia.
He showed enough at the combine to rise up draft boards, and Brooklyn was happy to grab him. The Nets started the season as contenders, but they suddenly imploded after their big three basically asked out. And somehow, in the middle of all that chaos, Nick was thriving, emerging as one of the best defensive bigs in the league. The 2023 season is where he would break out, averaging nearly 13 points, 9 boards, 2.5 blocks, shooting 70% from the field. He followed that up with another good season, and Brooklyn clearly understood the dude was a problem, giving him a 4-year, $100 million deal in the offseason of 2024. With the Nets clearly in rebuild mode, it's hard to say what's next for Nick. His future may be in Brooklyn, or maybe with another team since he's on a good contract. But one thing's for sure, getting a guy like this in the second round of the draft is an absolute steal. Some players have all the tools but lack the blueprint, and that was KZ Okpala. Coming out of Stanford, he was a 6'8 wing with a 7'2 wingspan. A crazy athlete who could slash to the rim, showed flashes of a 3-point shot, and looked like a defensive menace in the making, a la Trevor Ariza or Tayshaun Prince.
With the 32nd pick in the 2019 NBA Draft, the Phoenix Suns select KZ Okpala from Stanford University.
And when Miami traded for him on draft night, it felt like the perfect fit for Heat culture. But after KZ played in 2 of Miami's first 4 games, he missed the next 19 with an injury. And even when he was healthy, he spent most of his time in the G League. After 3 seasons and just 63 games with the Heat, he was traded to OKC, who waived him just 2 days later. He signed with Sacramento for the 2023 season and was so impressive on the defensive end that he actually started the first 3 games of the year. But he was such a liability on offense. A knee injury after just 35 games sealed his fate. He was waived in late February 2023, and as far as I've seen, he hasn't played any professional basketball in any league since. Carson Edwards never needed permission and never needed a green light. If you give dude the ball, he's gonna shoot it. And there were times during his junior year at Purdue when he was just special, like Steph Curry special. Dropped 26 on Old Dominion, and then 42 on Villanova, 29 on Tennessee, and then 42 on Virginia, a walking bucket. But he was also small. They were generous listing him at 6 feet. However, the Celtics took that risk.
With the 33rd pick in the 2019 NBA Draft, the Philadelphia 76ers select Carson Edwards from Purdue University.
Thing is, when the actual game started, the shots weren't falling. He never found consistent minutes in Boston, and before his 3rd season, he was traded to Memphis, who waived him just a week later. Carson got picked up in the G, leading the league in scoring by putting up nearly 27 a game on 59% true shooting. That was good enough for the Pistons to sign him in the final 4 games of the season, which wasn't really enough to prove anything. By the summer of 2023, he was without a team, so he packed his bags and went to Europe. He played in Turkey for a year before finding a home in Germany with Bayern Munich. And guess what? Different continent, but same buckets. In 2025, he led his club to the German League Championship and was the finals MVP. And in 2026, he's playing in Italy, making a name for himself overseas. A lot of times, the journey is just as important as the destination. For Bruno Fernando, that journey started in Angola. He went from being a throw-in to fill out a roster, to catching the eyes of scouts at the 2014 FIBA Under-17 World Championship before playing for Montverde in Maryland. At 6'10" with a 7'3" wingspan, he became a pretty dominant presence for the Terps, averaging 14 points and 11 boards while playing with a motor that never stopped, and flashing a lot of potential. But like we mentioned in previous people, we know how tricky potential is.
With the 34th pick in the 2019 NBA Draft, the Philadelphia 76ers select Bruno Fernando from Luanda, Angola, and the University of Maryland.
Atlanta got him in the second round, and he became the very first Angolan player in NBA history. And he got some minutes that rookie year. Then, Bruno was traded to Boston for half a season before they sent him to Houston. But then the Rockets traded him back to where it all started, in Atlanta. In the 2024 season, he actually saw some real minutes down the stretch and had some very good highlight plays. But not enough for the Hawks to want to bring him back. He would sign with the Raptors in 2025 and play in 17 games, and absolutely violated Giannis in the process. But Toronto waived him in January before his contract became guaranteed. Soon after, he signed with Real Madrid in Spain, where he's currently playing. At one point, Gigi Lozada was supposed to be the next best Brazilian player. The 6'5" wing with the smooth jumper and tough defense was playing pro ball at just 17. He started turning heads during the draft process as a potential put-away pick for later.
With the 35th pick in the 2019 NBA Draft, the Atlanta Hawks select Didi Lozada from Cachoeiro de Itapemirim, Brazil.
And in April 2021, he finally made the leap to New Orleans, playing the final 3 games of the season. The next season, he appeared in only 2 games for the Pels, and he was suspended for violating the league's anti-drug policy. When he came back, he only played in 2 G League games before he tore his meniscus. Days later, he was traded to Portland. He played just 7 games with the Blazers, didn't do too much, and was waived. He spent 1 more season in the G League, but never found his footing. And since 2023, he's been playing in Brazil and Japan. Cody Martin wasn't really built to be a star. Hold up, don't get me wrong, he and his twin brother were good, but they weren't stars. They weren't stars at NC State, they weren't really stars at Nevada. But if you really watch them play, Cody especially, you could tell that they could hoop.
With the 36th pick in the 2019 NBA Draft, the Charlotte Hornets select Cody Martin from the University of Nevada.
And that's exactly why the Hornets took the hometown kid at pick 36, despite him not being as talented as some others on the board. In Charlotte, he started his rookie year on the fringes of the rotation, but he worked his butt off and he was coachable. That said, the numbers aren't impressive, like at all. But in a league dominated by offense, he's managed to carve out a role where he's impactful for 20 to 25 minutes a night by playing high energy, smart and winning basketball. For 5.5 years, Cody did all the little things in Charlotte. In 2025, he was traded to Phoenix midseason, and he managed to find a role doing the same thing for the Suns. But his biggest problem was staying healthy. Now he's on the Pacers G League team, hoping to make an NBA comeback.
With the 37th pick in the 2019 NBA Draft, the Dallas Mavericks select Dividas Servidis from Vilnius, Lithuania.
Dividas Servidis' basketball career kind of starts and ends in his native Lithuania, and the NBA was only really a pit stop. In his home country, he's actually sort of a prodigy. He broke Jonas Valanciunas' record as the youngest player to play for Rytas Vilnius of the Lithuanian Basketball League. Detroit seemed sold on the 19-year-old and moved up to get him. And when he did finally join the Pistons, he just never really got a chance to play. Stayed in the G League for a couple more years, but like a lot of young international players who don't get chances to develop, he went back home and he's been thriving. As of now, he's one of the best players in the Lithuanian Basketball League and was productive in EuroLeague play in past seasons.
With the 38th pick in the 2019 NBA Draft, the Chicago Bulls select Daniel Gafford from the University of Arkansas.
Yo, every time I think about this pick, I get a little pissed. Because just how did Daniel Gafford fall to the second round? In his sophomore year at Arkansas, he put up 17 points, 8 boards, and almost 2 blocks per night. He was the first team All-SEC and on the SEC All-Defensive team. So the Bulls really got a gem, but the problem was the front court was already too crowded. And it didn't help that Jim Boylan was his head coach. The new regime in Chicago wasn't high on him in year 2, and they traded him to Washington midway through the year. But things clicked in DC, and when it was playoff time, he was unstoppable. In that first round loss, Gafford shot a ridiculous 84.6% from the field, an all-time playoff record. After being traded to Dallas, Gafford made 33 straight field goals, the second longest streak in NBA history, only behind Wilt. He finished the year as the league's leader in field goal percentage at 72.5%, and he was a major contributor to why they made their run to the finals. Dallas awarded him in the offseason of 2025 with a 3-year, $60 million deal to stay with the team, showing that even with Dereck Lively on the roster, they value his production. And this is the same center that got drafted behind Jaxson Hayes, way behind him. The most interesting part of Alen Smailagić's career might just be how he got to the NBA. It's a lesson of nepotism, so let's just get into it. In 2017, Kirk Lacob, yes, the son of Warriors owner Joe Lacob, was the general manager for the Golden State G League affiliate in Santa Cruz. Kirk was in Europe and he pulled up to a private workout to evaluate a friend's kid. And that's when he first saw 16-year-old Alen Smailagić. By the time Kirk came back in 2018, Smailagić had already sprouted to 6'10" and was the MVP of Serbia's 3rd division league. The Warriors convinced him to go to the G League under one condition, that he would only play for Santa Cruz. Having just turned 18, Smiley was taken 4th overall in the 2018 G League draft, becoming the youngest player in the history of the league. And he was decent when he played, but the Warriors were doing the absolute most. Like, they sat him whenever other scouts came to town. They hit him from the world like you know what, I'm not trying to get sued today, we're not gonna bring that one up. Anywho, when the 2019 draft rolled around, they even traded up to get him.
While we were away, the Pelicans made a pick. It is Alen Smailagić, aptly nicknamed Smiley.
And they did all that for no reason at all. The kid just wasn't ready. He never looked comfortable in the league. He was overwhelmed, overmatched, and underdeveloped. In 2 seasons, he only appeared in 29 games. After 2 seasons, they waived him. Today, he's playing in Lithuania, still chasing the version of himself that Kirk Lacob once believed in. Some guys aren't supposed to make it, and Justin James was one of them. Coming out of high school, he had just one high major offer, and it was Mississippi State. He passed on it and went to Wyoming instead. Not exactly a basketball factory, but James made the most of it. The problem was that he was playing out of position. He wasn't a natural point guard, and the team had a Coby record, 8-24. By the time he left Wyoming, he was the 3rd all-time leading scorer in Mountain West history. During his senior year, he averaged 22 points, 8.5 boards, and 4 assists. The scouts didn't love him though. He couldn't shoot, wasn't really an efficient scorer, and struggled to take care of the ball. It just didn't seem like he would translate.
With the 40th pick in the 2019 NBA Draft, the Sacramento Kings select Justin James from the University of Wyoming.
But he did sell one GM, whose name was Vlade Divac.
To follow his obviously college career, and that's the reason why we're so high on him, bring him here in Sacramento.
Justin worked hard, but at the end of the day, he wasn't really an NBA player. He split time between the G League and the Kings, and never really found NBA minutes, and was gone after just 2 seasons. Then he popped up in France, playing alongside Wemby for the Metropolitans '92. So he wasn't supposed to be in the league, but for a minute, he was. And he made the most of it. And sometimes that's all you can ask for. Eric Paschall might be the only guy in this draft who peaked before his rookie deal even had enough time to let the ink dry. Paschall was a winner at Nova, but there was nothing sexy about his game. Bro was a sturdy forward at 6'6" and could handle, pass, shoot, and actually tried to defend. And that kind of made him a perfect fit for the Warriors. Kinda.
With the 41st pick in the 2019 NBA Draft, the Golden State Warriors select Eric Paschall from Villanova University.
He put up 14 and 5 on nearly 50% shooting on an injured roster during his rookie year, and he averaged 17 in the games that he started. He got first team all-rookie honors and finished 6th in the Rookie of the Year voting, but that was his rookie season, without Steph, basically an illusion. By the end of his sophomore season, it was pretty clear Paschall wasn't going to be part of Golden State's plans. They traded him to the Jazz, they waived him, then he signed a 2-way deal with Minnesota in June 2022, but was waived for the season. At 25, he's out of the league. He stopped playing ball for a while, and when he popped back out in 2024, unfortunately, he went viral for not being in shape. He was just mentally drained.
But again, like, that's part of, like, mentally, I was just out of it, so I just stopped playing ball. Like, I hated basketball at one point.
And he talked about how his love for the game was just gone. Since then, he's been playing overseas for different teams, living his best life. With a name like Admiral Schofield, you would think this guy would play football. And I mean, he was kind of built for it. 6'5", 240. At Tennessee, he shined alongside Grant Williams and Jordan Bone. And I'll never forget that nasty poster he had against Mississippi State.
Building ready to explode.
But he was a flawed prospect, and he was already 22.
With the 42nd pick in the 2019 NBA Draft, the Philadelphia 76ers select Admiral Schofield from London and the University of Tennessee.
He got to Washington and didn't see much time on the floor, only appearing in 33 games. He spent most of the time with the Wizards G League team. In fact, one time he played for the Wizards and the Capital City Go-Go on the same day. He was traded to OKC after the season and waived before the next season started. And in 2021, the Greensboro Storm took him with the #1 overall pick in the G League draft. And he was just okay. Since then, he's been on two-way deals, trying to find another roster spot, and eventually went overseas and has played in France and Australia. In 2019, Jalen Noel was a tough prospect to evaluate. He could really score, that was never really in question. But nobody knew what he really was. He played point guard for UW, but wasn't really a good playmaker. At 6'4", he had the size to play the two, but could he? So scouts were left guessing, and that's how he ended up in the second round.
The most recent pick was Jalen Noel from the University of Washington, averaged 16 points per game. He went to Minnesota.
It took some time, but midway through year 3, he was firmly in the Wolves rotation, becoming an efficient scorer and tough defender that Minnesota could rely on in tough spots. He even shot 39% from 3. But the next year was a different story. The trust from the coaching staff wasn't there anymore, and by the end of the year, he was out of the rotation. Since then, he's been floating around trying to make another run into the NBA.
With the 44th pick in the 2019 NBA Draft, the Miami Heat select Bol from Khartoum, Sudan, and the University of Oregon.
Wemby is now is what Bol was supposed to be. Truly an internet sensation. He was like a My Player, a walking cheat code. The son of Manute Bol, he was 7'3" with a 7'7" wingspan. He played like KD with handles like Kyrie. And when he got to Oregon, he was living up to the hype, averaging 21 points, nearly 10 rebounds, and close to 3 blocks. While get this, shooting 52% from 3. And he was supposed to be a top 3 pick, and then he was gone.
Bol's lone season at the University of Oregon is over after he played only 9 games.
A navicular fracture in his left foot ended his freshman season. By the time the draft came around, the hype turned into hesitation. Some still thought he could go lottery, but in the end, the slide was worse than anyone expected.
I believe, gentlemen, this is a record. I don't know if we've ever had a player be invited to the green room that lasted as long into a draft as Bol, who goes to 44.
If we're keeping it a buck, you really can't get this type of upside in the second round. So Denver jumped at the opportunity. They tried to give him space and time to grow, even though he didn't play a game until the bubble. And that kind of became the theme of his time in Denver. He just didn't play, and Mike Malone could never trust him. Not with minutes, not with matchups, not with structure. He'd drift on defense and he settled on offense. And if there's one thing the NBA coaches hate more than anything, it's a player who doesn't do the little things. In January 2022, he was traded to Boston, who then moved him to Orlando a month later. And there, he finally got a chance to play. At one point, he was in the conversation for most improved player. Then he got sick during the pandemic, dropping his solid averages all over the floor. For the season, Bol was 114th in usage rating, but 7th in turnover percentage. He was in the 30th percentile in box out rate, 27th percentile in contested defensive rebounding percentage, and was basically allergic to defense. Also, with usage ratings, the lower the number, the worse it is. So the Magic moved on, waiving him after 1 season. Then he signed with Phoenix, where everyone thought that he could turn it around by playing with KD. But it was pretty much the same. Didn't play a lot of games, didn't get a lot of minutes, but there was a glimmer of hope. In the 7 games where he played 25 or more minutes, he averaged nearly 18 points and 8 boards with 2 blocks. But every year, there's always one moment that defines his career. The Suns were playing the Rockets. Steven Adams and Mason Plumlee are fighting. And where is Bol? Not breaking it up, not anywhere near the scuffle. He's shooting layups. And this more than pissed off Mike Budenholzer. Was benching him petty? Probably. But was it also symbolic? Absolutely. Because Bol's career has never been about talent. He's got a lot of it. The question has always been whether he's willing to do everything else. Will he box out? Will he rotate? Will he screen hard? Will he just lock in defensively? Heck, will he even make good decisions on offense? Will he be a good teammate and work hard? Until those questions get answered, Bol will stay stuck in limbo, somewhere between being KD and Thonmaker. And seeing that he's still a free agent, I'll let you answer that one. 3-star recruits don't normally end up on NBA radars, but by the end of Isaiah Roby's college career at Nebraska, you couldn't ignore him. 6'8", 7'3" wingspan, and 230 pounds of muscle. Basically built to be an NBA player.
With the 45th pick in the 2019 NBA Draft, the Detroit Pistons select Isaiah Roby from the University of Nebraska.
He went to Dallas, who sent him straight to the G League. And after a foot injury, the Mavs traded him to OKC without Roby ever playing a game for them. The next couple years, Roby showed he could play in this league. He even shot 44% from 3 during his 3rd season. But the truth is, he was never really in the Thunder's plans, and they waived him after the season. He was picked up by the Spurs, but they never really carved out a role for him. They waived him in March 2023. If you weren't around for the THT hype, just count yourself lucky. He was the youngest player coming into this draft at 18 and coming off of a decent season at Iowa. He was still 18 when his name got called. And honestly, it was a bit of a surprise that he entered at all. So what got him to LA? He had a decent freshman year at Iowa State, but it wasn't worth talking about. The tools were intriguing though. He was only 6'4", but had a 7'1" wingspan and weighed 240 pounds. So he played much bigger than his height. He had a creative handle and could make plays on both ends of the floor. But the jumper was inconsistent, and the shot selection was definitely questionable. So let me ask again, what got him to LA? Well, it didn't hurt that LeBron had been a fan since high school, and Bron told Rich Paul to keep an eye on him. So take a wild guess who his agent was when he declared for the draft. Yeah.
With the 46th pick in the 2019 NBA Draft, the Orlando Magic select Talen Horton-Tucker from Iowa State University.
And let me tell you, Lakers fans thought this man was next, but he wasn't who fans thought he was, and the Lakers fed into this nonsense. That offseason, they let Alex Caruso walk and instead gave THT a 3-year, $30 million extension after some decent performances on the bubble. The thing is, the promise didn't match the production. His minutes went up, but his efficiency never did. And after his 3rd season, he was traded to Utah. He played decently well there, but he was unable to develop a 3-point shot. And then he had a pretty forgettable season with the Bulls, playing fewer minutes and a career low for numbers. And now it's time to ask, is this it for THT? For most second-round picks, his career would be a success. I mean, 6 years in the league, a rotational role, a championship ring, big contracts. That's something most players would dream of. But if you remember just how real the hype was, then you know why it doesn't feel that way. And I can't help but wonder, would one more year of college have helped him? The same issues he had at Iowa State plagued him in the league. Sometimes you can just have too much too soon. Right now, Ignas Brazdeikis is back home playing in Lithuania and winning trophies. In the 2025 season, he helped the squad win the cup and took home MVP of the tournament. Now, back in 2019, Iggy B was one of the best freshmen in the country. He took home Big Ten Freshman of the Year at Michigan, a 6'7" shot maker with confidence, physicality, and 3-level scoring ability. But the defense, yeah, that's where concerns came from.
While we were away, Sacramento selected Michigan's Iggy Brazdeikis.
The Knicks saw the upside, and immediately he showed out in Summer League. But the NBA minutes just never came. But he was putting up 21 and 10 in the G. The Knicks traded him to Philly, where he played in 1 game before they waived him. He got picked up by the Magic and actually got a chance to hoop. So he stayed for another year, but the opportunities just weren't there. And eventually, he went back home.
With the 48th pick in the 2019 NBA Draft, the LA Clippers select Terrence Mann from Florida State University.
By the time you get to the 48th pick, teams are usually throwing darts. I mean, of the last 10 guys drafted number 48, only one has logged real NBA minutes, and that's Terrence Mann. He wasn't special at Florida State, but he was reliable. He was a playmaker, a slasher, a rebounder, and a tone setter on defense. He did everything, except shoot from deep. But the Clippers saw the potential. He didn't see much time during his rookie year, but in the season finale, he showed out with 25, 14, and 9. Later, in Game 6 of the Western Conference Semis, Utah was up 25, and Terrence Mann came through in the clutch with 39 points and 7 threes.
Jaxson races up the floor. Terrence Mann wide open for 3. Pucks it in. Mann drives. Mann finishes. 31. Rebound Jaxson. Beautiful pass, and Mann lays it in. Timeout Utah.
In 2024, the Clippers extended him for 3 more years. And in the 2025 season, things changed. He wasn't quite as effective, and they traded him to Atlanta, who flipped him to the Brooklyn Nets in the offseason. He's still a guy who's reliable, coachable, and a winning player. A guy who makes his team better. And that's the kind of value you can only hope for at this point of the draft.
With the 49th pick in the 2019 NBA Draft, the San Antonio Spurs select Quinndary Weatherspoon from Mississippi State University.
It's hard to say that Quinndary Weatherspoon didn't make the best of the talent he had. A 4-year starter at Mississippi State, the combo guard turned a solid college career into a real opportunity during his senior year. averaging 18.5 per game on nearly 51-40-81 shooting splits, showing promise as a potential 3-and-D on the next level. But the 3 part never really stuck. He rarely saw NBA minutes with the Spurs, spending most of his time in the G League. Then he signed with the Warriors G League team for his 3rd season and absolutely cooked, earning him a couple of contracts with Golden State, where he technically won a chip in 2022. But since then, he's been a little bit of everywhere. China, back to the G League, Puerto Rico, Canada, and maybe some other stops. Jarrell Brantley was like the forward version of Quinndary Witherspoon, another 4-year college standout who just didn't make it in the NBA. But at the College of Charleston, Brantley was a problem. He led the CAA in defensive win shares for 3 consecutive years, and during his senior season, he put up 19-8 and earned first-team All-CAA honors.
Last selection made by the Pacers was Jarrell Brantley from the College of Charleston.
The Jazz took him, and like most second-round picks, he played mostly in the G League, where he did dominate, averaging 19, 7, and 4, with 2 stocks per game while being first team. But Brantley just couldn't find minutes, and after 2 seasons, he was waived. He played briefly in Russia, but left the team after the start of the war in Ukraine. Since then, he's been to Puerto Rico, among other stops.
With the 51st pick in the 2019 NBA Draft, the Boston Celtics select Tremont Waters from Louisiana State University.
At 5'10 and 175 pounds, Tremont Waters was the smallest player at the 2019 Combine. But don't let the frame fool you, because he can really hoop. At LSU, he broke Ben Simmons' freshman assist record and led the SEC in steals his sophomore year, and ended up taking home the SEC Defensive Player of the Year. But NBA execs couldn't look past the height, so he slipped to the 2nd round, where he was drafted by Boston, and right away, dude showed major heart.
West Haven right now, we are learning that the father of the local rookie guard just picked by the Boston Celtics has died. Police say Edward Waters Jr. was found dead in a hotel room in West Haven.
Despite grieving, Waters took the court for the Celtics Summer League team the very next day and put up 16 points. That's just the kind of competitor he was. That season, he only appeared in 11 NBA games, but was the G League Rookie of the Year, and unfortunately, he never really found an NBA home. In 2022, he went to play overseas and has been there ever since. And at one point, he was Wemby's teammate in France too.
With the 52nd pick in the 2019 NBA Draft, the Charlotte Hornets select Jalen McDaniels from San Diego State University.
Let's get this out of the way. It's Jalen McDaniels, not Jaden. Yes, they are brothers. And yes, they're both 6'9", with height, bounce, and defensive tools. But while Jaden became a rising star in Minnesota, big bro Jalen's NBA journey has been bumpier to say the least. The Hornets took the chance on him coming out of San Diego. And over 4 seasons, he gradually carved out a role on the team, averaging about 10.5 points and 5 rebounds during his 4th season, but wasn't really efficient. In 2023, he was traded to the Sixers, and during Philly's 1st-round playoff series against Brooklyn, his defense on Nickeil Bridges was a big reason why the Sixers swept the Nets. Unfortunately for him, he was awful against Boston and was benched by Doc Rivers. He would sign with the Raptors in the 2023 offseason, and I'm not exaggerating when I say that he was one of the worst players in the league that season. Toronto moved him to Sacramento, who sent him to San Antonio, where he was waived shortly after. He spent the last couple of seasons in the G League, working to try to make another NBA appearance. If the NBA was just about getting buckets, you would probably know about Justin Wright Foreman's name. He almost never saw the floor during his college freshman year, but by the time he left, he was one of the best players in Hofstra's history. He put up 18 a game as a sophomore, 24 a game as a junior, and a ridiculous 27 a night in his senior year, while shooting 51% from the field and 42% from 3. And yet, he didn't get invited to the Combine. At 6 feet tall, he was really seen as a combo guard who didn't defend.
With the 53rd pick in the 2019 NBA Draft, the Utah Jazz select Justin Wright Foreman from Hofstra University.
And that's been his basketball story. Despite being drafted by the Jazz, he never got a chance to play, only appearing in 4 games. But he's a bucket wherever he plays. He's scored well in the G League, and he's led the Canadian League twice in scoring. And he's been putting up buckets all overseas as well. Now, if we're talking about guys who've shown out everywhere but can't seem to get a real NBA shot, Marial Shayok is another one. Another one-and-done player, and I'm not talking about college, because Shayok actually spent 3 years in Virginia before transferring to Iowa State, where everything clicked for him. As a senior, he put up 19 a game, was first-team All-Big 12, and won the Big 12 tournament MVP. But he was going to be 25 before his rookie season, and that's why he slipped to the 2nd round.
76ers just made a selection. Knicks are on the clock. Marial Shayok from Iowa State.
Still, Philly took him and signed him to a 2-way deal, and he lit it up in the G League, averaging over 22 points per night. But after playing just 4 NBA games with the Sixers, he was cut. And since then, he's been playing overseas as well. Some guys are just winners, and in college, Kyle Guy was exactly that. At Virginia, he was the heart of a championship team during his junior year, where he averaged 17 a game and shot 43% from deep. He dropped 24 points in the national title game and walked away as the tournament's most outstanding player. But the problem was, he was a two guard in a point guard's body.
With the 55th pick in the 2019 NBA Draft, the New York Knicks select Kyle Guy from the University of Virginia.
During his rookie G League stint, he was actually hooping, averaging 21.5 points and 5 assists while shooting 40% from 3. And in year 2, he had a couple of good moments on the main roster, but that was about it. He had a 19-game stint in Miami in year 3, where he actually got 26 minutes a night, but didn't stick with the team. After that, he played in Greece and Spain before deciding to retire in August of 2024. But recently, he came out of retirement and is playing for his hometown Indiana G League team, hopefully trying to make an NBA comeback. Jalen Hands was a 5-star recruit, a McDonald's All-American, and the number 3 point guard in his class, ranked ahead of guys like Trae Young and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. His mixtapes had over 1 million views. I mean, he was a star, and he was next. And yet, he never played a single game in the NBA. How? When he got to UCLA, he was supposed to be a part of a superstar backcourt with Aaron Holiday. But after just 5 games, Jalen was benched. A year later, with Holiday going to the league, Jalen had the keys to the offense and responded by averaging 14 and 6.
With the 56th pick in the 2019 NBA Draft, the LA Clippers select Jalen Hands from UCLA.
He ended up going to the Nets, but Jalen spent his entire rookie year in the G League, averaging 11, 3.5 assists, and 3 boards. After the season, his rights were traded to Detroit, but by then, he had already made the decision to go overseas. And since then, he's played in Serbia, Germany, Belgium, Greece, Italy, and putting up some impressive numbers. Alright guys, I gotta admit, I was a fan of Jordan Bone. He had the fastest lane agility drill, the fastest shuttle run, the fastest 3/4 sprint, and a 42.5-inch vertical. But the scouts weren't totally sold. He was already 22, just 180 pounds, and at 6'3" with only a 6'3" wingspan.
With the 57th pick in the 2019 NBA Draft, the New Orleans Pelicans select Jordan Bone from the University of Tennessee.
In a league that wants switchable defenders, he wasn't fitting the bill. He only saw 10 games for the Pistons. In year 2, he signed with Orlando, but was gone by mid-season. Then he played for a carousel of G League teams before going overseas. And then he revealed something that made it all make sense. He posted on IG that he had been playing on a bad knee for years, to the point where he could barely walk. He's rehabbing now, hoping to return to pro basketball soon.
With the 58th pick in the 2019 NBA Draft, the Golden State Warriors select Miye Oni from Yale University.
I don't care what anybody says, because Miye Oni has had a successful basketball career. He wasn't even supposed to make D1 basketball. And what do I mean by this? By the time his senior year came around, he had barely played basketball. In high school, he played JV as a freshman, didn't play his senior year, missed most of his junior year with a knee injury, and by the time his senior year came around, he had no tape and no D1 offers. The only interest he had was from Williamson College, but they didn't offer him enough financial aid. So how the heck did he make the NBA? A Yale assistant coach happened to stumble across his highlight tape and offered him a spot, but his age, competition level, and unconventional path made teams hesitant. But somehow the Jazz made him the first Ivy Leaguer drafted in 24 years. By year 2, he cracked Utah's rotation, but the next year, the Jazz's signing led to Miye falling out of the rotation. He was traded to OKC and waived, signed a 10-day with New Orleans, but never played. And that was kind of it for him. Since then, he's been playing overseas. And I don't think we're gonna see him back in the NBA, but the guy's beaten the odds multiple times, so who's to say he can't do it now?
With the 59th pick in the 2019 NBA Draft, the Toronto Raptors select DeJuan Hernandez from the University of Miami.
DeJuan Hernandez was really a victim of the pre-NIL era. He was a McDonald's All-American and 5-star recruit who chose to stay home and play for his Miami Hurricanes. But he was implicated in an FBI corruption case centered around Christian Dawkins and his attempts to launch a sports agency. The NCAA ruled him ineligible, so he lost his junior season and had to declare for the draft. And that lost year really mattered. Still, Toronto took the flyer on him, and he showed promise his rookie season, averaging 14 and 9 in the G, and he even had a brief moment in the bubble, knocking down a couple of clutch buckets in a win over Philly. But he just couldn't carve out a role in Toronto.
With the 60th pick in the 2019 NBA Draft, the Sacramento Kings select Vanja Marinkovic from Belgrade, Serbia. Have a good night, everyone.
With the final pick of the 2019 draft, the Kings selected Vanja Marinkovic, a 6'5" shooter out of Serbia that never came over to the States. However, in Serbia, he's a 2-time Serbian Cup winner, a 2-time Serbian League champion, and he represents his home country in international play. He even took home a bronze medal at the 2024 Olympics. Last pick or not, that's a basketball resume you can be proud of. Getting your name called on draft night is what every player dreams of. But if your name isn't called, that doesn't mean your career is over, because what really separates this class from most is what happened after the cameras stopped rolling. Because while 60 guys heard their names in 2019, some real hoopers never did. And I'm talking about real difference makers, an NBA champion, and one guy whose claim to fame is how his career ended. And that guy is Jontay Porter. And trust me, this is a cautionary tale in every sense possible and imaginable. Because this guy had the potential, he had talent, and he had atrocious judgment. The younger brother of Michael Porter Jr., Jontay was a 5-star recruit who reclassified just to be with his brother and his dad at Mizzou. But there he tore his ACL and MCL in a preseason scrimmage. In March 2019, before he was cleared to return to court, he decided to play pickup with his brother and friend, and tore his ACL again. Memphis still gave him a shot, but he didn't really play. He spent time in the G League. And then in December 2023, the Raptors came calling, closing in on the chapter where bad judgment comes to play, because he placed 13 bets on NBA games, some of them including parlays that involved Toronto losing. He was even texting bettors in the locker room during games, talking about shots he was going to take in games and even faking injuries. Needless to say, Jontay got banned from the league. The NBA even implemented the Jontay Porter rule, which banned sportsbooks from including unders on player props who are on 2-ways or 10-day contracts. I guess that's another way to make history. Not every undrafted story is that bad though, because while Tacko Fall didn't have a long NBA career, there's not many players that were as loved as he was. And honestly, from the time he stepped on the court, he was a phenomenon. At 7'6" with a 8-foot wingspan, he was the internet's biggest sensation. And just to put that into comparison, Victor Wembanyama is only like 7'4". At UCF, Tacko was never the focal point of the offense, but by his senior year, he was putting up 11 points, 8 boards, and 3 blocks per game. But come that draft time, we all knew what Tacko's weaknesses were. But even with that, Boston took him on a 2-way deal. And while he spent a lot of time in the G League, Tacko was a fan favorite in Boston. After 2 seasons with the Celtics, he signed with Cleveland and again found little time on the court. And since 2022, he's been overseas, playing in China and New Zealand. And while Tacko Fall never cracked Cleveland's rotation, a couple of other undrafted free agents did, and one of them is Dean Wade, who really made himself into an NBA player. A foot injury derailed his senior year at Kansas State, and his lack of athleticism scared teams off. But Cleveland saw a smart player who could contribute and stretch the floor, so they signed him on a 2-way deal. And Dean did what he's always done, adapted, adjusted, and earned his spot. After spending most of his rookie season in the G, he signed a multi-year deal, and since then, he's been a steady presence in the Cavs rotation. He might not be flashy, and he's probably never had a viral highlight, but he's solid, and that's the kind of player you love to find after the draft is over. And again, speaking of undrafted guys who carved out real careers in Cleveland, you can't really talk about the Cavs today without mentioning Max Strus. Strus started his college career in D2 before transferring to DePaul. After sitting out a year, he led them in scoring for 2 straight seasons. But NBA teams weren't convinced. Boston brought him into the camp and cut him pretty soon after. Then Chicago gave him a shot, but he only played in 2 NBA games during his rookie year before an ACL tear ended the season. And then Miami signed him to a 2-way, and he found his way into the rotation. By year 3, he was a starter for the team that made the run to the NBA Finals. Without him, they wouldn't have even made it out of the play-in. After that season, Strus got the bag. 4 years, $63 million with the Cavs. And when he's not injured, he's their starting small forward. Just another example to show that where you start isn't where you have to finish. Max Strus wasn't the only undrafted player to make his mark in Miami, because Caleb Martin was right there too. We already talked about his twin brother Cody in the video, the guy that got drafted to Charlotte, but Caleb was with him the whole way. They started their college careers at NC State and transferred to Nevada together. But questions about Caleb's age, athleticism, and efficiency led to him going undrafted. He signed with Charlotte to play with his brother, and despite spending most of his rookie season in the G, he ended up cracking the rotation towards the end of the season. He had a lackluster year 2 and was waived by the Hornets after they signed Kelly Oubre. So, after only 2 years, it seemed like Caleb's career was on the rocks. But he happened to get some help from a good friend and superstar rapper J. Cole.
There was no ulterior motive or anything for Cole. It was just like, man, this is my guy, and he deserves a shot. So Cole has a relationship with Karan. We have a good relationship with Karan. So he just called him like, yo, I know you're in Miami. Like, you should take a look at this kid.
Caleb signed a two-way deal with Miami, and by the time December ended, he was a big part of Miami's plans, which became more apparent during their 2023 season when Caleb took over as the starting forward on a Miami team that went to the NBA Finals, and was just one vote shy of winning the Eastern Conference Finals MVP. He played one more season in Miami before signing a 4-year, $32 million deal with the Sixers in 2024. And with Philly going through a horrific season in 2025, Caleb didn't last the season. They traded him to Dallas in a deal for Quentin Grimes. The Folger soldier Amir Coffey is far from the player he was in college. Coming out of Minnesota, he was a 6'8" lefty with size, slashing ability, and enough playmaking juice in transition to raise a few eyebrows. But he lacked some important attributes. First of all, the shot wasn't there. He made just 30% of his threes in his final college season. And second, despite having all the tools, he wasn't a great defender. But he was good enough for the Clippers to sign him on a two-way. But when Kawhi and PG missed the entire 2022 season, Coffey got real minutes for the first time, and he delivered. In 2022, LA locked him in on a 3-year extension. And in the 2024 season, he had the best year of his career, averaging nearly 10 points a game, shooting 41% from deep and 89% from the free throw, which earned him a spot with the Milwaukee Bucks. Daquan really had to get it out of the mud. He started his college career at Oral Roberts, bounced to a JUCO, and then finally landed at Tulsa, where he started to improve as a player. He even won the 2019 NCAA dunk contest, but his game wasn't really NBA ready, so he went undrafted. Eventually, he signed a two-way deal with the Kings, and over the next few years, he was all over the league, spending time with the Rockets, Spurs, Grizzlies, Hawks, Knicks, mostly in the G League, and almost never getting any real NBA minutes. But that all changed in the 2025 season. As a part of the trade that sent Cat to the Knicks, Daquan was signed and traded to Charlotte. And because of all the injuries, he became a part of an NBA rotation for the first time in his career, averaging nearly 23 minutes a night. He ended up getting waived and went back to the G League, but maybe that one stint earned him enough run to get another shot. You can't talk about pure athletes in this draft without mentioning Terrence Davis. His college career was a slow burn, but by the time he left Ole Miss, he was a legit two-way wing. But he didn't want a two-way deal. He wanted a guaranteed contract and a roster spot. So he joined Denver's Summer League squad, and after just one game, the Raptors called him with a fully guaranteed deal. A few early injuries opened the door for Davis to get some run, and to his credit, he took full advantage and became a crucial piece of Toronto's rotation and even made the all-rookie second team. But he was traded to Sacramento the next season, and injuries started to pile up. Ankle issues, wrist issues, and by 2023, he was out of Sacramento and in the G League. And then early in 2024, he ruptured his Achilles. But he rehabbed and fought his way back. And in 2025, he suited up for the Wisconsin Herd, and in almost 2 years since his last NBA appearance, and signed a 2-year rest-of-season contract with the Kings. At least we know why Terrence Davis wasn't drafted. It was his choice. But when watching Naz Reid, it's kinda crazy that he didn't go drafted. I mean, he was a 5-star recruit, a McDonald's All-American, and a proud member of the viral Jelly fam, known as Big Jelly. At LSU, he showed flashes of huge potential too, but when he got to the combine, things unraveled. He was the 3rd heaviest player with the highest body fat percentage by far of anyone there. He bombed the agility drills, including running the worst shuttle run of the last 10 combines, and he only put up 185 on the bench 3 times. The red flags were definitely flagging. Minnesota signed him on a 2-way deal, and within 2 weeks, they upgraded that to a full contract. The flashes turned into consistency, and Naz remade himself into the best backup big in basketball. He grinded, got in shape, and stayed ready. And in 2024, he became the NBA's 6th man of the year. And when Cat got traded to the Knicks, Naz stepped up again and averaged a career high in points, rebounds, assists, and minutes, all while helping the Wolves go to their 2nd consecutive Western Conference Finals, which earned him a huge 5-year, $125 million deal, making him one of the best undrafted free agents in recent memory, and probably the best center in this draft. The only guy competing for the title of best undrafted player with Naz Reid is Lou Dort, and low-key, he might be the biggest steal of this draft. Dort was low-key hooping during his lone season at Arizona State. The shot selection was wild, the efficiency wasn't great, but he was a freshman with all the physical gifts to be really good. OKC scooped him up on a 2-way, and from day one, he played with a chip on his shoulder. Chris Paul came in with SGA, and injuries opened up the door for Dort to get real minutes, and he never looked back. He even made a name for himself in those playoffs, guarding James Harden like his life depended on it, which earned him a multi-year deal that summer. And over the next few seasons, he kept adding to his bag. The jumper got a little more consistent, but the defense was always elite. By 2022, OKC locked him in with a 5-year, $87 million extension. And by 2024, he was universally recognized as one of the best defenders in basketball. And in 2025, he was all defensive first team, anchoring the league's best defense. And of last season, now for the rest of his life, you have to call him an NBA champion. Bro stared down the odds and beat them. And now every team wishes they had a Lou Dort. At the end of the day, the 2019 draft is proof that the generational hype at the top doesn't always tell the full story. We walked into this thinking Zion and Ja were going to take over the world. But 6 years later, this class has flipped its own narrative. It's not just about the superstars. It's about guys like Tyler Herro or Jordan Poole who carved out massive roles, or defensive dogs like Lou Dort or Matisse Thybulle. Sure, this class might only have 1 All-NBA appearance and 4 All-Stars so far, but it's loaded with winners and role players who actually impact the game when it matters. It just goes to show you that you have to look past the top 3 picks to see what a draft is really made of. And look, if you want to see how that lesson applies to the current league, you gotta check out my breakdown of the 2024 class. People were calling this one of the worst drafts ever before it even started. But as we saw today with 2019, draft perceptions can change over time. Anywho, I went through every single pick from the 2024 class, from Risa Shea at number 1 all the way down to Bronny at 55. If you want to see which of those rookies are already tracking to be high-level role players or sneaky stars, then click on the video that's showing somewhere on the screen right here. Love you guys and appreciate you for watching the video. I actually just started using my Instagram again, so if you guys want to go follow me and chat or see some of the other content that I post outside of the NBA, go follow it there. Should be in the description somewhere. And if you're new to the channel, sub, like, comment. I answer all the comments, as many of the people that already watch the videos know. And, well, I'm looking forward to seeing you in the next one. Peace.